computer. Okay, so welcome once again to the juggernaut that is the Kandy Fontaine Show. I'm your host, Alex S. Johnson, aka Kandy Fontaine, sometimes known as Candy Fondue. And my special guest with me today is none other than Teel James Glenn. He's a well, what hasn't he done? I'm gonna I'm gonna bring up my bio here so that I can be accurate. And let's see, where did my bio go? Um, Fortunately, we have so much we could discuss that so just hang on because I want to at least do the do a college try attempt here. Um, there is some of my collaborations, some of my okay, so here we go. So, Teel James Glenn stands at the crossroads of pulp lineage, stage combat tradition, and globe-trotting swashbuckler mythos, and the receipts back every inch of it. He's an American author, stuntman, fight choreographer, sword master, actor, illustrator, and pulp revivalist. His career spans 40 plus years across stage, screen, and genre literature. He has, quote, killed hundreds and been killed more times on stage and screen while traveling the world as a stunt performer and sword master. Yes, he trained under Errol Flynn's last stunt double, giving him a direct lineage to Golden Age Hollywood swashbuckling technique. His stunt and acting resume includes over 200 episodic soap opera appearances, 70 feature films, and 60 Ren Fair festivals, as well as a fight scene with Hawk on Spencer for Hire, which is I adore that series. I mean the novels. Um, and he is internationally recognized for playing Vega and serving as fight choreographer in the viral web series Street Fighter the later years. As a writer, Glenn has published dozens of novels and over 200 magazine appearances, including Weird Tales, Mad, Pulp Adventures, Space and Time, Kursava, Silverblade, Heroic Fantasy, and Sherlock Holmes Mystery Magazine. He is a 2012 Pulp Arc Award winner for Best Author, and he continues to teach sword work in New York and maintains an active presence in indie, fantasy, steampunk, mystery, and sword and sorcery circles. So welcome, Teel. Now, see if I can find you here. Yes, there you are, my friend. And you've got a appropriately mythic um, Hobbit adjacent
Yes, Scotland.
background. No, you're in Scotland.
Yes,
You're
I love that.
right. Yeah, I am of Scottish lineage myself, and we come from some warring clans. So, you know, they're um, a lot of ferocious because I've got on one side I've got the Norwegians and on the other side I've got the Scots and I'm a peaceful but I have certain boundaries and then my great
As
grand
as as Billy Elliot, as Wild Bill Elliot said, I'm a peaceable man
I'm a
until I'm not.
peaceable man until I'm not, right, yeah. My this is really interesting. My great grandfather was a man of action. He was an American historian named Herbert Eugene Bolton, and he's the guy who kind of remapped American history. So it wasn't just the Pilgrim Fathers, it was the Spanish borderlands, right? He would travel for like hundreds and hundreds of miles. He was almost like a Indiana Jones in real life kind of guy. He traveled across burning deserts, and I totally think that Spielberg would make a killer movie of his life. So, and he was also a
Oh,
amateur boxer.
well, I mean, there were they really were men of iron in the 20s and 30s and the
Yeah,
1890s, exploring, and the world was yet to be found
right.
completely.
Yeah.
And I mean, William Henry Savage was the guy that Doc Savage was based on, and he was
Wow.
an engineer and explorer. And a lot of his life reads like it was a pulp story. And,
I love it.
yeah, I mean, when you read some of the stuff about actual historical stuff, like the Battle of Cameroon
Hmm.
with the French Foreign Legion, like you could make up a story as cool as that, you know,
Yeah,
where guys with no ammo fix bayonets and charge 500 to one,
I
and
love it.
and and then when they ring them, they say, surrender, and he says, the Legion doesn't surrender. You surrender to us. And the guy says, okay,
Right.
how about a truce? I'm like,
Right.
you know, balls of steel. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah. Like we were discussing earlier about, I was trying to enlist you in what's it called? Revelations, a literary tribute to Iron Maiden. And I think you would be perfect if you would do The Trooper, because that's one of my favorite songs. It's so,
I
I
will.
think,
You know what? I'll tell you right now. I will start looking at it to get onto it.
okay.
I'll find something there that works.
So
Yeah,
so badass. So let's talk sword and sorcery. So Teel is a returning author with my press, Nocturnicorn Books, and this is the first time, our first outing that we had with Teel. This is Dreams of Fire and Steel, a sword and sorcery anthology, which was initiated, I got to give credit, by Juan Gutierrez, aka Jesus, was it Jesus Rodriguez? Is he even in the book anymore? I'm sorry. But he may not be he had some
I,
problems
I
getting
think he didn't wasn't able to finish what he was started on it. Yeah.
exactly.
Uh,
So, so that was initially how I met you through that. I think it was a Facebook group, and I'm trying to like,
yeah.
so the really super annoying pinging noises that come up when you got an open tab for Facebook. I'm just going to clear my tabs because the
A man
pings.
of many talents.
A man
Yeah.
of many tabs. Well, yes, I mean bars and everywhere. No, I don't drink. I don't drink, but I've got some mates in England, in London, and boy, those guys, man, they love their pints, and it was just
and
wild.
their beer has a higher alcohol content than our beer,
Yeah,
which is why
true.
a lot of college students from the states who are over there got think they can do it, and they get tanked much earlier in the evening because
Yeah.
it's like 3% more alcohol. It's just enough to make the difference.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
yeah, and this is really wild. Speaking of England and our beloved genres and so forth. So this is a really crazy kind of connection. So do you know Mitzi Soretto? Um,
You know the
she's
name.
she's the one. So she's a crime writer and editor, and she's got the teddy bear, right? She's got Teddy J. I the bear gets upset quite easily, is very sensitive bear, like something I don't want to misname the bear because he's going to come after me, man, because I had them on my show, okay, and this is really wild. So I'll try to tie it all together. So she is a good friend of another one of my friends and contributors, Lucy Taylor, and she's kind of partially, she has a UK residence and American residence as well. And there's another guy, D. Harlan Wilson. It's more of a bizarre guy. Anyway, so there was this film in which I think Mitzi appeared, and it was based on, they made up a kind of a pulp, like a terrible pulp bizarro writer named like it begins with a P, like anyway, I'll look it up later. But it also has people like Alan Moore in it. So there's really
Wow.
all these really weird connections in my life because it's like one of my contributors is a guy named David J. Haskins who founded the bands Bauhaus and Love and Rockets and wrote Bela Lugosi's Dead. And he's actually very, very kind of down to earth and open, he's not above, people. He's not, he and Peter Murphy are sort of like, yin and yang, really. David is much more accessible, but he was part of the circle that involved people like John Shirley, Bruce Sterling, Ken Goffman, Are You Serious, and Alan Moore and Genesis P. Orridge, right? And then so there was some crazy black magic stuff that happened, and astral travel, and so yeah, so there's so many weird connections when you start to look at like lineage, and the connections between, say, Jimmy Page and Ozzy Osbourne, and you know Black Sabbath, and then Blue Oyster Cult and Motorhead, because umlauts. And then you have the Michael Moorcock stuff, right? And Patti Smith is also part of that as well. And John Shirley
Yeah.
also wrote songs for Blue Oyster Cult. So, like, I don't know. So you were mentioning earlier before we started recording about how a lot of creatives are not one thing. Like, you know, um,
Yes, I
you're a
think
perfect
that
example.
once you, yeah, when you see a world that's different, um, you want to interact with it in different ways. So I think um, most writers have some visual sense. A lot of them, a lot of actors or writers were artists
Hmm.
first, um, or singers, or musicians, or all of the above. Frederick Remington wrote short stories.
I didn't know
You
that.
know,
That's that's so
Howard
badass.
Pyle wrote Howard Pyle wrote books. Um,
I didn't know that
you
either.
know, yeah, and so there was a point where he wrote it and illustrated. There you go. I mean,
Right,
you have somebody like Jack Kirby, who is a comic book writer, but he's a
right,
myth creator. He
right,
didn't just
exactly.
write them; he exploded them. But like Roger Moore was a cartoonist first, and an animator. And yes, Roger Moore,
Wow.
and a lot of artists. I mean, I did a show with Tony Bennett at one point,
Oh,
and
wow.
we talked about his paintings, because he's been a painter for 50 years or 60 years. He was a painter. He did love to do landscapes.
That's
Charles
really
Bronson
cool.
Charles Bronson used his GI fund not to go to acting school, but to take classes at an art college in Philadelphia. And he paints. And in fact, at one point, he sold some of his paintings, and like it bothered him so much. 2 days later, we went and he bought them back from the guy because they're so personal to him. But that's how he relaxed, was painting.
That's
Jimmy Cagney
beautiful.
was a painter,
That's
you know.
beautiful. Yeah.
So yeah, and I think that once you open up one creative door, as I was saying about genres, the walls between genres are porous. I think the walls between the arts are porous. Um, Dancers have a good sense of color. Musicians have a good sense of space.
Right.
Um, I mean, which one of it isn't Queen, who's a freaking nuclear physicist?
Oh,
Um,
Brian May.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I knew a guy in Delaware who was he was in a ballet company that I worked with, and he was a an astrophysicist with NASA, but he was in the ballet company.
Of course. Because
And yeah,
space, right? Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that once you start to see the world in terms of how can I interact with it and create, you don't stop at one thing. Most of the writers I know, they dabble with poetry, where sometimes they'll sketch, or they you know draw. I mean, my first career that didn't become a millionaire at was I went to art school thinking I was
Right.
going to
And
finance my other stuff
at
from my art career.
Parsons?
Parsons School of Design, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh, and but I had Dick Giordano as one of my instructors, and Vern
Wow.
Hogarth.
Nice.
Um,
Holy
yeah,
Toledo. Wow.
and Randy Enos,
Oh,
Howard
wow.
Beckerman, who was one of the original animators from Cherry Tunes,
Oh my
and he was
gosh.
a living cartoon. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
he'd spent so much time like going and then drawing it that he everything he did was an exaggerated cartoon. I
I
taught
love that.
some classes. Yeah, I taught some classes on special effects and how they're done for film for the animation class, so they can
Yeah.
understand the live action stuff. Um, but yeah, I think that almost everybody I know who is a writer does some other stuff,
Yeah.
whether it's like gardening, but
Right.
gardening as an artist,
Right.
you know. And I think that's to me, it goes back to the whole samurai thing. A samurai. Actually, I'll quote my father, who's not quite a samurai, but he was about as low blue collar as you could get. But he said, "If you're going to shovel shit, you should be the best shit shoveler in the world and do it like an artist."
Hmm.
And I think that if you apply yourself to anything
Right.
with commitment, it becomes art. And there's there's craft and there's art.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes when the art isn't there and the craft sustains you.
Yeah.
But if you work the craft long enough, the art comes back. And
Interesting.
then when it's all work, because like the craft part of it is getting the spelling right and putting the commas in the right place.
Yeah.
But the art is, what do the characters do? And how do you get the feeling out of them? And you know, so sometimes you go, well, I need this paragraph to be structured better
Yeah.
for the craft. And then sometimes you say, screw the craft. The art says this should be
The art
paragraph
says,
should be fragmented,
right.
you know, and, and then it's about pushing that limit a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Well,
as my thoughts on this are that, as a writing instructor myself, as a composition instructor, and I always had an issue with this, what I think see as the artificial dichotomy between form and style, or content and style, because like one of my oldest friends is Billy Martin, Poppy Z Bright, and I started out not I could have published with like you know necro publications or whatever, but I was sort of like, I'm not there yet, but I know some people I could learn from, right? So I would like talk to people like Nancy Kilpatrick, or who are some of the other, Krista Faust, or Poppy Billy, or Craig Spector was one of my earliest people that I chatted
Krista,
up.
Krista just made the best one of the best horror stories of the year, and I think she's up for a British Fantasy Award too.
That
That they were announced today.
that's so cool. Good for her, man. Good for her. Yeah. And so my thing was always like, I would call up, people like John Skip. I was like bend their ear and was like, how do you do this? What do you do? And I would learn. I mean, I was asked to ask questions, and one of the most instructive things that I ever kind of appreciated was, not only just like reading Poppy Z Bright, but actually sort of seeing, okay, what specifically is he doing that gives it that very kind of almost synesthetic, total sensual immersion quality. And it's like, well, what Poppy does is introduce things like taste. So you're
Mm-hmm.
in there, and you got, say, two characters. I mean, he's a gay man, so they're going to be, two gay guys kissing, whatever. But you can taste the saliva. You know what's in their mouth.
Yeah.
You know if they have a little blood in their mouth, and that, or if what they've had to eat, or if they've had some wine or something. And it's like, this is cool. I can use this. So I'm really big on like um, writing technology. In other words, it is a craft, it's an art, and it's a science too. I mean, you can micro fine tune stuff.
Well, I was it Arthur C. Clarke said any science sufficiently advanced appears to be magic,
It
and
appears to be
any
magic.
magic sufficiently codified
Right.
is a science.
Yeah.
And writing should be that interspace between the science of construction and the art of immersion.
Right.
You need
That's
to make, that you know, I will I my thing is I always read my work aloud. That's
yeah.
my final version is always I want to hear it. I
Yeah.
consider myself Shawnee, which is an old Irish storyteller. So I want to I want to hear it sound, because if it doesn't sound right, it's not going to read right, because
Yeah.
we make the sound in our head as we read.
Yeah.
And there are sometimes you're like, that sentence needs to be shorter because this one needs to be where you linger, or this needs to be one word, so you stop.
Yeah.
And you can, it's almost equivalent to a movie shot or a panel in a comic, in
Right.
that you can hold people. A page that is all text with no break can be really daunting. But
Yeah.
if you do a lot of that and then you have one break, that one break becomes important and people will linger on it.
Spot on.
And yeah, um, it's really weird. The book that won the Pulitzer, Angel Fallen, has no punctuation. It's one sentence, the entire book.
Nice.
And I'm like, I want to see how he does that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of those people who doesn't think that Joyce was terribly successful, but I applaud him for trying. This guy sounds like he built on Joyce and might have figured out how to do that. Now, mind you, I like periods, so I'm not planning to get rid of them, but I want to see how he does it. And I'm always interested to see
Yeah.
how somebody else crafts it. I did an experiment once where I took exactly the same plot. I mean, exactly the same plot, and I wrote it as a Western, a 30s thriller, and a sword and sorcery story.
Hmm.
Exact same outline. And I go by Burroughs' thing. Burroughs says, just because you have a good plot, don't throw it away. Change the characters and the location, and it becomes a different story.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
wanted to see if it worked, and it did, because once you had the character, the tone of it changes, and the feel of it changes,
Yeah.
and the ending changes.
Yeah.
Each, the same exact plot became a different story. I mean, you could, if you did like a one sentence or a two sentence synopsis of it, it would sound the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
But once you're in it, and that's the art part of it, because the craft
Yeah.
is just, there it is. But the art is saying, now it's like jazz. How do I take these light notes on the page and fill the spaces in between in a way that makes you want to come in and
Yeah.
smell them, and lick them
Yeah.
and hold them.
Yeah. I just want to throw something at you. So one of my best friends and like colleagues and people, one of the people I think is one of the most superlative stylists of our time is Caitlin R. Kiernan. And she's always said that she doesn't believe in plot. And she
Mm.
never revises. I mean, she'll do like line edits, but
Yeah, to clean it up.
but not like she doesn't reread what she does. Of course, you got to be a master. But I also think what you said about music, so talking about like, when I'm writing, I sort of go into like a sort of it's a flow state, and I'm
Mm.
concentrating not on you know advancing the characters or giving them motivation or the whole Sid Field thing or beats or I think it's really, or save the cat. I don't even know what that is, but people are sort of,
Oh, I know.
you know what I mean? Like,
I, I I'm a complete kilter.
yeah.
I'm Scottish, so I'm not a pantser. Um, uh, I, I just, I have a general idea, and sometimes I'll have the ending in my head, but often not. But once I meet the characters, they tell me what to do, and
Yes,
they
me
tell me
too.
the speed the story has to be.
Right.
Usually, the story doesn't begin until I have some dialogue,
Yeah.
or a character interacting with something. But then um, I don't know what the story is until I get to the end of it. I
Yeah.
will some I the la, The other phrase I love is, writing a novel is much like reading a novel, except it's trying to kill you. Um, and the last one I did was very much that. It really tried to kill me because it was complex and layered, and there was a lot of things I wanted to say and do with it, and at the same time make it interesting and not make it didactic. And I saw that weight in a cornflake box once, and uh, and and my writers group think I'm hilarious because they're like, look, the last two, you said the same thing each time. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know if you're right. Just keep going. You know, at this point, they
You're
just humor me.
killing me. You're killing me, Smalls.
So, yeah, but it's, you know, a short story. I agree with Poe. It should, the first word should go like an arrow to the last word. So
Yeah.
usually I have a pretty clear idea with that. Um, but a novel is jazz. A novel
Oh
is
yeah.
um, you know, and to me that's the way to escape tropes. Is when the characters start doing stuff, they do stuff that isn't the way things are done, but they're gonna do it that way, and you freaking follow them there.
Right.
And I just follow my characters around with a notebook and write down what they do.
Oh, I
I
mean,
do,
me too. Me
you know,
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
My big thing
totally.
is I visualize a lot. Um, I don't think I could ever write in anywhere where I didn't have a bed available because I will lay
Right.
on the bed when I'm stuck for something and
Yeah.
just run a scene in my head and sometimes run it back and change it. And by the time I get to the typewriter, it is something else. And I often don't know what I'm going to write when I sit down. I just know he's going to go in the room. I don't know what's going to happen in the room. And I just start, and somewhere in the Rolodex in the back of my head, that's how you can tell I'm really old. I reference Rolodexes. Um, it's been working, and it kind of goes. I don't think I've ever really been had writer's block so much as
Hmm.
I've had um, a lack of inspiration or energy.
Hmm.
Sometimes I need to just go away from it, then come back. Um, but yeah, this is the one. This is the one that I was saying just tried to kill me.
Oh
Undiscovered
my
Country.
gosh.
It's the third one in the Paradise series, and you
Yeah.
know, uh, I I set a high bar for myself, but
Yeah.
yeah, again, um, there's some people who write with music. I write with old movies on.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
I I, I like to hear human voices. So I
Y-
can write in restaurants or like in a
Yeah.
park because there are people around. And I love, I'm the TV's my babysitter. I'm home in my cave
Right.
by myself. So I'll watch old noir movies or Hundra, classic films like that. Um,
Noir.
yes, yes.
Noir.
So yeah, but you were saying it's true. Everything sort of connects.
I mean,
There was
yeah.
there was an old TV show called Connections a
Hmm.
billion years ago, and the premise of it was a guy. He would like take a premise through history, like freedom or gunpowder or whatever, and he would trace it. And his whole premise was nothing comes out of nowhere. It
Nowhere.
comes from something.
Exactly.
This got changed to do that, and then it was answered because they needed this, and that went over there. And I feel that way with writing. Um, you know, something will spark it, and often it's a case of, oh, that was a lousy plot twist. I got to do my own version of that, and go off and do something else.
Yeah. I'm looking around because I did a series with a, a gal named Bertie Walker, and it was called Fucked Up Fairy Tales. And we actually, like, for the second one, we got Bill Plimpton to do the cover art. And it's a kind
Oh
of a
wow,
right, and it's sort of like
wow.
a twisted parody of, fairy tales, and we had people like Garrett Cook and Reese Hughes and what was her name? I got one of them. I'm gonna show you just a second. Um, yeah, so this is volume 10, and I believe this is with uh was it Tiffany Tiffany Morris? Um yeah, Tiffany Morris and Bertie Walker and me. And I did a so yeah, so and witty and clever Bill Plimpton. So we also got a blurb, right, from Bill Plimpton, right?
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, there wasn't really a point to that. I'm just kind of braggadocio, but it's legit, right? And the fucked up fairy tales. Actually, one of the stories, the last one, which I shared with I mean, we're every one of us, like every one of the series would have like me and Bertie Walker, and we kind of created the mythical landscape, or actually I created it. It was called Euphoria, the Kingdom of Euphoria, and you had like Princess Cherry Pop and her father, Hubert Longwood the 12th or something like that, right? And it was just very wrong in so many ways.
Uh-huh.
And then I watched this video, so I was looking up, Caitlin Kiernan videos, and I discovered this guy named Jeffrey Thomas. And he just is a very unassuming, really, really nice guy, right? And he's about your age. And his has a 15-year-old daughter, maybe 16 now, Jade Thomas, right? And she's also an author, and I actually published her along with her dad in one of my books. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
really
cool.
right. She's
That's
real,
really
real
cool.
sweetheart, and she got to. I sent her like a hardcover of the book. It's called Neurospicy, and she signed it to her English teacher. I'm like, oh man, I was so proud that that happened. And Jeff, when he was reading, with Kate, he was just like, I was like, oh my God, this guy's amazing, right? So I kind of stole some of his ideas and I put it in one of my books. And he wrote the foreword to my last collection, which is I'm super, super, super proud, right? Because Jeff is like one of our he's right. He does all the things, right? I mean, is it cyberpunk? Is it surrealism? Is it, you know, is it dark fantasy? And so shout out to Jeff Thomas. Amazing. It was just like I'm a very emotional person, so I don't really um, have an agenda or, specific, ideas about like what is, rules for writing. I feel they're more like there are structures that are helpful, like you said, like using little experiments. Like, what if you mapped this character, or this, rather, you took a a basic plot structure and then you mapped it onto specific characters, and then you ran those characters through the lens of a genre, and you get
Yeah.
all these like subtle colorations, and you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I mean, well, like I said, it's jazz. It's truly
yeah,
jazz. You take, you take like, you ever hear John Baptiste? He'll be playing a classical piece, and then suddenly he'll
sure.
go off into jazz with it
Yeah,
and variations. And to me, um, I mean, there's only three plots. Man against
right.
man, man
Man,
against nature, and
nature,
man against himself.
right.
And um, and there's only three situations: put him up a
Yeah,
tree, throw rocks at him, help him get down out of the tree.
right,
So it's never plot. Um, Although, I mean, yes, a mystery can have a cool puzzle,
right.
but it's just a puzzle. It's not a story unless
Yeah,
there's character and world building. And so, to me, it's the jazz of what you do with it.
yeah,
You could give the same one paragraph outline to 5 to 10 authors and say, write a story to this.
yeah,
And there would be 10 completely different stories,
right.
completely different. They would be, there would be almost no connection at all. Unless you said like, okay, and they all have to end with the word monkey or
Yeah,
something,
right. Yeah,
and that's because everybody is going to take it in, it's going to filter it, it's going to look at their life experience
yeah,
and their skill level, and they're going to say, okay, what can I do with this? Where is
Yeah.
it going to take me? You know, and
Yeah.
um, and that's the thing, is the trick is always to take a trope and stand the trope on its head,
Hmm.
but not always, because if you do
Right.
it always, then people expect it. It's
Exactly.
always
Yeah.
expect the unexpected. No one
Exactly.
expects the Spanish Inquisition. So,
Bingo.
you know,
Yeah. Right.
so to me, I have a hard time when people say, "What do you write?" I say everything but math textbooks, because if I
Right.
did, that would be awful. Um,
Right. Yeah.
I've written westerns and romance, and
Yeah.
because it to me, it's the character. Once you find somebody you want to spend time with,
Yeah.
then you start exploring the world with them, and then the world gets built, and then you go from there. I mean, the story I did for the first
Yeah.
um, uh, Fire and Steel um,
Buy
was
it now
when
on
it was.
Amazon. And that was
And it's a really good collection. There's a lot of really good stuff in it,
thank you.
not just mine.
And it was like I want to give a sort of a, rest in peace to, my wonderful collaborator, um, uh, Kevin Candela, and we wrote a story together, which is in this collection, and he died fairly recently. I sort of found out I have a neurological condition, so I was offline for a long time, and I came back and he was gone. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So because he helped me out so much. He's the one who designed it, put it together, did put everything into GIMP or something, and poured all the illustrations in. And some of these are fantastic, like how
Oh,
Braun the
I think
Pig.
it's a really pretty book.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it's
so
a
much.
really
Yeah.
pretty book. And
And
like I said, and it's a really nice spectrum
yeah,
of stories. They're not all, you know, musclehead barbarians.
right.
And as I started to say that the story that I wrote for that, when it was going to be Sumerians,
Yeah,
I said no one's ever written a female Sumerian.
right.
So I was going to write a story about Ada as a female Sumerian, and then he said
Nice.
we can't do that. I said that's all right. I have my fantasy world. I'll just make her an Umbrian, which is my
Exactly.
Highlanders in my world.
Yeah.
And now I've written like I don't know 15 stories with her. And the in that first story she meets this poet, this bard, and
Yeah.
all the stories are her and him together wandering around. And but I had no idea where it was going to go when I started. I just knew I had that opening image, and I knew I wanted to spend time with her, and then I started to build the world. And I love that because I'm getting the adventure along with them. It's like
Yeah.
I'm LARPing on paper, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um, because I honestly I don't understand people who can be emotionally divorced from what they're writing. I mean, I could, to a certain extent, I could write something I'm not completely in love with if it was like a paying job,
Right.
but I would have to find part of it that I loved. I
Yeah.
don't understand people who can just crank it out mechanically. To a certain extent,
Yeah.
that kind of escapes me because I'm Celtic. I'm
Right.
emotional as it comes.
Right. Exactly. I can tell. Yeah.
Play,
The-
play some bagpipes and I want to kill some Englishmen. It's just what
oh,
happens.
I mean, for sure,
Um,
for sure, and I think that goes much deeper than people even realize, because, like, Caitlin is Celtic, literally Irish, and a lot of my friends are, either Native American or Latino or part black or whatever, and women, and it just there is a certain outsider mentality that comes from, especially if you're from, we're Scots, I'm like Scots and Scots Irish, but there's a kind of like this sort of, marginalized, oppressed groups where
yeah,
you're over, you come into life in battles and you want to, like, you know,
yeah, and you look back at your own history. It's like I said, I'm Scots, Irish, German, Jew, and Cherokee somewhere back there, but we
yeah,
don't think. So literally, every one of my ancestral lines has been oppressed in some cases by the other ancestral line. So
yeah,
yeah, um, when I went to Scotland on my honeymoon, uh, I got out of the train in Edinburgh and I looked up at the hills and I went, the color of the heather on the hills. I'm like, I'm home. And I felt it like on a genetic level.
Yeah,
And my
wow.
wife at the time looked around and said, they all look like you. I said, I should freaking hope
Hope
so.
so.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
and I've always, I wanted to go back. I mean, it just, there's definitely like a blood memory connection.
It's
And I
just
don't think
beautiful.
it's just, romanticized. I think it's
No,
there.
it's real.
Um,
And
you know,
like, yeah, do you know the movie Train Spotting?
yes, yes.
Yes, like who's the main character? Yeah, he was in some of the Star Wars. Ewan McGregor, right?
You McGregor.
E-
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor, and he says, the British, they're just wankers. We were people who were colonized by wankers. We're the
Yeah.
scum of the bleeding earth.
It's
We're
true.
the
Well,
lowest of the
you know what?
low.
The Romans built a wall to keep us out. You know, the
As
Romans
well, they
said, no, these
should.
guys are too freaked out for me. I'm not dealing with them. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. A funny story. Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, he
Hmm.
has a twin brother who is an RAF pilot
Nice.
whose call sign is Obi-2.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I
Yeah, there's
like, oh, how can you not love that,
well, as long as
So,
we're yeah, so like okay, I gotta mention Lemmy. And because well, again, the music thing, and Lemmy had the whole, the Marshall thing, he and but I mean, they were all friends, Halford and Bruce, Dickinson and those guys, Dio. They were all really, really good pals. But I think, Lemmy absolutely exemplified that kind of like that fighting spirit. I mean,
oh yeah.
I think he must have been a general or something in a previous incarnation.
Oh yeah, I know for a fact that somewhere in my past, this is a weird confession I will now make. You can walk up to me, not saying that people should, but people can walk up to me and punch me in the face, and I'll go, "Why did you fucking do that?" But if you slap me even as a joke, I lose it, and I don't know why, except somewhere in me, I accept that as an absolute insult. Because if you punch me, I recognize that you respect me as a warrior.
Enough.
If you slap me, you are calling me a bitch, and you know,
Bingo.
and
Bingo.
yeah, and I like the whole, Frenchman, oh, Paul, I would lose it. I would be like ripping your throats out with my teeth because I will fight you till 5 minutes after I'm dead.
See,
That's,
that's
and I'm a very peaceful guy, but
yeah,
I'm from
yeah.
Brooklyn, so
Well, yeah, me too. I mean, I'm not from Brooklyn, but I have that kind of weird kind of like I never initiate shit, but woe betide the person who fucks with me because it's not going to be um um how do I put it? I'm a student of
not going
Sun
to be pretty.
Tzu. I'm like a scholar of Sun Tzu and Clausewitz and Machiavelli, and I'm sort of like, how do I get them to fuck themselves over meticulously and without even realizing it, and pretty
Yes, well,
soon,
that's the whole.
right?
I in the bar that I worked in, I was the only bouncer who never got into a fight
Right.
because I would go up to some guy who was causing trouble, and I would put on the humble thing, like, oh, man, I'm really sorry. I
Yeah.
need this job. I got a kid at home, but my boss says you got to leave. Look, if you
Right.
finish your beer and head out, come back tomorrow night and I'll buy you a beer. And then I would
Nice.
turn and walk away.
Right.
Now, the other bouncer thought I was nuts, but like, there's mirrors, so a guy wasn't going to sneak up on me. And
Right.
I made him a hero. He could finish the beer and walk out as a hero and give me a little nod. And they never remembered to come back the next night.
Right.
Ever, ever, ever. So I'm like, if I'm gonna because if I'm gonna fight, I don't fight, for fun.
Right.
It's just not gonna happen. And and that's one of those things where on the other hand, I'll put up with a lot.
Yeah.
I will put up with a lot unless it's to somebody else. If I see somebody else being put on,
Right.
somebody weaker, I I I will step in, and I fear for my daughter because she's got that too. Now,
Right.
mind you,
Yeah.
she's 6'3". I'm
Wow.
six
Nice.
six, she's 6'3",
Okay.
and she will stand up for people the same way. She will step in and go no, and but that's my nature is to I don't like confrontation, but I will end it if
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me too. Me
it's just
too. Me too. It's a simple matter of defining boundaries. And when you for me, it's sort of like, okay, I want to be clean about it. So I don't want to ever get emotional. I don't want to get riled up. I don't never want to show it. Also, what you said about letting them walk away, you you let them save face more than
yes,
anything else, right? It's all about their psychology and their motivations. Nobody wants to
yeah.
be the bad guy.
Yes, exactly. And I'm a fr- I used I worked at a year-round haunted house called Times Square on 42nd Street and 8th
Oh,
Avenue
wow, nice.
for about 3 years. I was the ballyhoo out front. We're
Yeah.
here for your fear 13 months of the year. Come on through and we'll
Nice.
take care of you.
I love
And
that.
uh, and what no matter what anybody tells you, Times Square still has the ladies of the evening working there and the druggies working the
Oh,
streets.
wow.
And I made friends with all of them because I gave them respect.
Yeah.
And if they started to do deals underneath our we had a marquee, and if they
Yeah.
started to start doing deals under the marquee, I would go, "Come on, guys, we got kids coming in here. Could you
Right.
just move it 10 feet down?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, no problem, brother." And again, never got into any problems with anybody
Right.
because I look at everybody. I start out figuring you're equal to me until you prove you're either not
Right.
or you're an enemy.
Yeah.
So I try to. Everybody deserves respect.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves respect.
Me too. I
And
feel that. Yeah.
if you can solve a problem and let everybody think they've won, yeah,
Right.
that is the ultimate Sun Tzu. That is,
Right. Yeah,
that
exactly.
is the ultimate Tai Chi warrior is to turn your enemy into your friend or turn your enemy into an ally.
Right.
And that's the ultimate goal. My sword and sorcery series. Uh,
Yeah.
um,
Nice.
I'll tell you stuff. The main character in it is a priest of this religion, the Kova, and his whole thing is like, um, we're going to solve this peacefully, one way or the other.
Right.
Either we will all have peace, or I will put you at peace, and feel fine about it because I'm giving you the option, you
Yeah.
know. And he's kind of a combination of Shaolin priest and Jesuit. He's like a warrior priest, and um, that's pretty much my philosophy. It's like, hey, we can all win. There's
Right.
always a way to find a win for everybody, unless you're unreasonable. And
Yes.
I just don't want to give work to lawyers if I can help it. So uh, you know, I would much rather put somebody in a submission hold than punch them because people can get hurt when you get punched.
What
So
did Shakespeare say? First kill all the lawyers, right? Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Although
Right.
when I had a lawyer, they were listed in my phone book as my shark. So you know, if it's gonna be, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But all world's a stage. Um,
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, like we're talking about like how genres are very porous, and you quoted Shakespeare, and you like one of your books has, a Shakespeare quote on the as the title. Also, The Undiscovered Country. But I also,
yeah.
because I was an English teacher, I loved to point out all the body shit, like for
Oh,
example, right when I would introduce like Much Ado About Nothing, I was like, if you were in Shakespeare's time, you'd be like snickering like Beavis and Butthead because it's basically a
oh,
whole lot of talk about the coochie.
yep.
That's what it
It is.
means, right?
It is about a fifth of all Shakespeare references are combat,
Right.
About a fifth to a fourth are sexual references,
Right.
and the rest are historical references or double puns. But that's
Exactly.
pretty much all of Shakespeare. If he
Exactly.
was alive, he would be writing I Love Lucy, Nightmare on Elm Street,
Street.
John Wick,
Right.
because it's all that classic. I used to take around a tour for the Ren fairs called
Hmm.
Saturday Matinee Shakespeare,
Nice.
and we would do scenes from the different plays that involve combat,
Right.
um, and we would do the first meeting of Kate Petruchio, and turned it into a sword fight, where
Yeah.
when she says, "If I be washed, best beware my sting," she'd pull
Sing.
his
Yeah.
sword out, and he
Nice.
would have to duel her. And afterwards, twice, two separate occasions, English teachers came up to me and said, "I teach that, and I never realized it was so bawdy." And I'm like, "Honey, you ain't been reading the notes, have you?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's downright filthy. Please,
Right. Yeah.
are you speaking of country matters, sir?
Sir. Right.
What with
Yeah.
my tongue in your tail? I mean,
Tail.
all of
I
that
was
is
about,
straight
I
up.
was searching for that one. Yeah. Or how about
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not Marlowe, it's Andrew Marvell, okay, to his coy mistress, right? It's like this quaint honor, like
Uh-huh.
how you would pronounce it in the back in the day, right?
Oh, it's quite, yeah,
Point
yeah,
honor, point honor. I like sports, say no more, say no more.
yeah.
Like
I mean, that's just it.
photography.
It's yeah. All right. Have you done it? What's it like?
What's it like?
Um, yes, it's, everything is either a song cue or a Monty Python cue. That's all the
Right.
world, you know.
Yeah.
And in some cases, with Neil, what's his face? They're both. Um,
Yeah.
you
Like
can,
I was thanks to my friend Jay Slater, who also wrote the movie Perverella. And right, and it worked with people like who's the William Lustig, right? And so he introduced me to Caroline Munro, who's absolutely fabulous, right? And
oh,
so
what a gorgeous lady.
is incredible. And so I had lunch with her in on Baker Street, and she came in
Oh,
and
you lucky
and
devil.
oh, thank you. Yeah, she's really sweet. And this is
And
going
she
to
has aged beautifully with
she
no
has
artificiality.
with no extra augmentation, right? She's pure
Yeah.
magic. And so anyway, Jay said, "Oh, you just need to buy her some tea and you'll be fine." It's like, "Really?" Because she's like a superstar. And it's like, "Don't worry about it." So she comes in, I'm sitting down at this tea shop in London, and the doors open and there she is, and she's pushing a pram. My mind immediately goes there, but it was an empty
We like
pram
to
as
push
well.
the pram a lot.
Ought.
Let's
Caroline,
not go
come
there.
on,
It's a
come on.
silly place.
It's just it's only a model. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the entire story. She was
No,
pushing a
I just
pram.
I uh, one of my favorite movies. If it's up there, my top five or six is Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter,
Captain
where
Kronos, yeah.
she's the femme fatale.
Yeah. She's such a
You know.
good femme fatale. You remember like in The Spy Who Loved Me, where she's the like the I don't know, she's supposed to be some like what Soviet, bad
and
girl or
and
something.
she's Diane the Beautiful in At the
Right,
Earth's Core,
right,
and
right,
couldn't
yeah.
be better named. You know.
Yeah.
Um, oh yeah, oh yeah. I love all that. I mean, I love Hammer films. I mean,
Yeah, me
my
too.
one of my goals in life is to I started out wanting to be Errol Flynn. Now I'm old enough, and the way I look, I'll settle if I could be Vincent Price or Peter Cushing. I'm
Okay.
perfectly willing. I'm
Yeah,
putting it out there in the universe, folks.
yeah.
Um,
Do
um,
you think that um today's horror villains lack something? I mean, back in the day, and I'm not even that old, but I remember growing up, I adored, Betty Davis or Peter Cushing or, Boris Karloff or Peter Lorre or,
or,
those guys, Vincent
or
Price. And it's
Christopher
like
Lee that had
Christopher Lee,
class.
they had
You know,
something different. They had
yeah.
something we don't have
Well,
now.
even I would even say I would say even Robert Englund
Yeah, for
was sort of the
sure.
last of the classy bad guys.
Right.
He
Yeah.
was able to turn Freddie into something interesting,
Yeah.
you know, um, and you can tell that because when, well, even though Osmond's a really good actor, when he did Freddie in the remake,
Yeah.
Hallie Joel Osment,
Yeah.
there was something missing. There was just something missing, and um, I think part of it is that too many modern actors are all about getting into it,
Right.
and I think all of those actors were, um, I'm going to reach down and bring this material up with me.
Hmm.
I'm not going to go down to its level. I'm going to
Right.
bring it up to me, and because literally, there's nothing that Cushing or Lee or Lugosi, for all of his hamminess, was in that they didn't elevate, where they weren't
Yeah.
the best. Or Karloff, who was an idol
Karloff.
of mine,
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
I saw his last film that he did. He did like the last four films he did with these four Mexican films. He
Yeah.
shot his parts in LA and they shot the rest of them in Mexico. And they came out like a year or two after we passed.
Yeah.
But he was, he was in a wheelchair and he was wearing oxygen, and his performance was still as crisp and interesting
Yeah.
and vital as it had been in the 40s.
Right.
And it's because there was a kind of a verb to it. There was that honestly, I got to say, Tom Hiddleston has that for his Loki.
Okay.
He makes Loki interesting. He
Cool.
makes Loki. You can see the wheels turning.
Right.
I actually would love to see Hiddleston play Dracula.
Oh,
You know,
wow. Oh,
and
wow.
there's something because he can be savage and he can be intellectual both.
Yeah.
A lot of British actors don't know how to be savage. They know how to be
Yeah.
intellect. Like Benedict Cumberbatch, great
Hmm.
actor,
Yeah.
but when he did Khan in the Trek remake,
Yeah.
I didn't for a moment believe him. There was
Right.
nothing savage about him.
Yeah.
He was too intellectual. There was
Right.
there was a civilization, and I think somebody like Hiddleston can find that. And
Yeah.
that's what the British actors, if they needed to be savage, they could be savage because they didn't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
I remember the actor. He was killed by his lover in Panama at one point, but he was on Broadway in Mystery of Edwin Drood,
Okay.
um, older British actor. And somebody said, "Oh, when you're doing this part, when you're getting into this, how do you feel with this?" And he says, "Oh no, my dear, my job isn't to feel. My job is to make the audience feel."
Gee. Yeah.
And I'm like, too many actors are trying to experience it and not thinking, how am I going to make this experience work for them?
That's
How
so
am I going
true.
to? I think that's some of the difference.
That
Um,
that's sort of like to translate this into another medium. Like I love, Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, and I also I'm a huge fan of Bowie, and we actually did a Bowie book. But we had like Tony Zanetta, who was the manager for, Main Man Entertainment and, stage manager for like, you know, David Bowie and Ziggy Stardust, right? And so the whole Trent Reznor Nine Inch Nails thing is deeply introspective, deeply angst-ridden, and I saw them perform together on their tour in 1995, and Bowie was enormous. His presence was enormous, and he really sold it to the outer to the earbleed seats, and Trent just seemed like he hated his keyboards. Like he was just like really mad at his
I
keyboards and he kept,
I have seen performers that you go, you don't like. I honestly think that's one of the reasons that what's her face, Taylor Swift is so popular.
yeah,
Taylor Swift is all about there, not about here.
right,
It's not about her experience. It's
right,
literally about projecting an experience out.
right,
And I think, and again, that's what Queen had.
right.
You know,
Oh, I
I mean,
know.
that's what Freddie was all about.
Oh, I
I,
know. Yeah,
and I think that's the some of what's missing is that um, too many too many performers and too many writers, I think too, are um, for want of a better word, trying to show what they can do as
yeah,
opposed to trying to reach you. How
yeah,
can I make? Because I always tell when I was teaching, I'd always say, look, if I if you don't understand something, the parry or the footwork or whatever,
right.
uh, don't worry, it's not you. Obviously, I haven't found a way to get to you yet with
Yeah,
it. So it's not your fault, it's my fault. I have to find a better way to communicate it.
right.
And to me, that's what a novel, that's what a song, that's what a painting needs to be. Yes, it should have my experience in it, but it should be
Yeah,
about giving an experience to my audience.
yeah,
Mickey Spillane always called his readers his customers.
yeah,
And he said, "I'm a writer, I'm not an author.
yeah.
Writers, work for pay. Authors work for
Authors,
awards."
right. Yeah. So,
You know,
yeah, I mean, I love that, Teal. And it really, so when I write, I think my most important, I'm not, so this is kind of hard to like explain or whatever, but I'll try. So my main concern, my overriding concern is not I want to be Hemingway, I want to be Fitzgerald, although I fucking love F. Scott, so much. But I want I don't want the my reader to have to work. If I'm doing my job right, they're just going to be like they won't even realize that they finished a
they're lost in
600
it.
page novel and then they're going to be start up again, right? Like I remember when I first read, The Shining, I'm like, get to the end, I'm like, holy shit. I flipped to the beginning and I read it again
Yeah,
and it was
the
scarier.
best experience I ever had was at a I was at the Long Island Convention of Horror, and a
Hmm.
publisher came. We were chatting with a publisher, and I gave him a copy of the first of this Paradise Investigation series,
Yeah.
and I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing." We were chatting, and and that was on a Saturday. He comes by my table on Sunday and looks at me and goes, "You son of a bitch!
Bitch.
I didn't get any sleep last night at all." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "That, that's
Right.
my goal. I
That's my
want to
goal.
ruin a lot of people's sleep.
Sleep.
I
Yeah.
want to I want, to make, I want people to miss their subway stop, you
Yeah.
know, because
Yeah.
that's for me. Like that's what Howard did for me. Reading his stuff,
Yeah.
I could be reading it and I would miss my bus stop. I could,
Yeah.
I would fall into the story.
Yeah.
And even now, as somebody who has now, they say, first you see a tree, then as you learn about the leaves and the stems and the branches and the roots, but when you really understand it, you just look at it and go, it's a tree.
Right.
And now that I'm looking at writing as like the leaves and the stem and how it goes,
Yeah.
the authors that still I will start to read Spillane or
Hmm.
um, Peter O'Donnell or Howard or even Lester Dent.
Yeah.
I'll start to read them for the technique, and
Yeah.
after 10 minutes, I realize, shit, I'm in the story now. I can't
Yeah.
get out. I can't separate the craft from it anymore. And
Right.
that to
So,
me is how it works.
one guy who is like the world's worst stylist, and he even had continuity errors in his novels, who I fucking adore, is Theodore Dreiser, and I think he doesn't get nearly enough recognition. The man could tell a story, you know. I've
It's
read the American
you know what
Tragedy
it's
like
like
many
if you if
times.
you if you take apart Lovecraft,
Yeah.
Lovecraft is a lousy writer,
Yeah. Right.
but he's a
Yeah.
hell of a storyteller.
Sure.
You know, he
Yeah.
creates mood and he pulls you in even when there's no freaking plot. He
Right.
pulls you in when there's no characters to care about.
Yeah.
And so, every rule is made to be broken.
Every rule is meant to
Every,
be broken.
but the trick is, Bruce Lee say, learn the rules and then break them, you
Break them.
know.
Yeah. Right.
But I read years ago, I think it was in Writers Magazine or Writers Digest. It was like,
Yeah.
you want to be a writer? You get a table, a chair, a typewriter, a ream of paper.
Yeah.
You put your ass in the chair, you put the ream of paper in
Yeah.
the typewriter, and when you stand up 10 years later, you might be a writer.
Nice. Yeah.
You know, it's doing it and soaking up from everywhere you can,
Yeah.
uh, and never make the mistake of thinking you're creating art.
Right.
Just tell a story.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start to get pretentious about it, it falls in on itself.
Yeah. You know what, Teal, what's really, really cool is I do this sort of thought experiment where, I mean, I'll give you an example like Moby Dick. I mean, Moby Dick is one of my absolute favorite novels of all time, and it's also considered a literary classic. Well, for 50 years, it was not considered. It was considered his worst novel. People are like, what the hell
Uh,
is this, right? So
yeah, Billy Budd
what
made more money.
right, exactly, Billy Budd, right? And they were like, what is this? What's the Shakespeare? What's with the Shakespeare stuff? What's with the cetology or whatever? And
Yeah,
something that Billy Martin said is, I think, is absolutely incredibly accurate. He said, well, it's basically a queer horror novel, and it's the greatest queer horror novel ever written. I'm like, well, yeah, that is. I mean, so.
it's all about the hunt for the big white dick.
Exactly. And when you like and yeah, so there's so much homoeroticism in it. It's not even funny. It's crazy homoerotic. And that novel is one example of like where okay, so what is it? It's a South Sea adventure. It's a whaling. I mean, it was a whole genre of like
Yeah,
whaling stories at the
yeah,
time, right? Walt
yeah.
Whitman wrote an abolitionist novel. A lot of people have written novels in a popular genre, and I can't think of a single great novel that's considered literature that isn't also a genre of some kind.
Often because once it's recognized as great literature, it
Yeah,
becomes a genre.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I happen to like Hawthorne a lot.
No, me too, man.
I love the language.
Right.
I was the only moron who read Scarlet Letter twice in
Okay.
high school because I
Yeah,
really love the language,
yeah,
and it's like Poe led me to Hawthorne,
yeah.
and then to Hawthorne short stories, which I
Yes,
really like.
sure.
Um, and and they weren't a genre then; they were
Yeah,
just stories, and
yeah,
that's why I sometimes don't know what genre I'm writing until I
yeah.
finish the story. Somebody else reads it and goes, "Oh, this is steampunk," or "This is this," or
Right.
because again,
Is that
I
yeah.
just want to tell a story, and
For
and
right
you
for
know,
right for the new one for the new Dreams of Fire and Steel 2, a sword and sorcery anthology coming soon to Amazon. um, Featuring Teel James Glenn, Matthew Knight, Caitlin R. Kiernan, Nicole Six, Ellen Mabey, J.G. Faherty, lots of cool people. And it's like the whole mystery of what is genre is usually because we haven't like looked at our emotions. People are so busy trying to quantify things or coming up with a formula or following something. It's a lot of, it's almost like this, it seems to correlate with the whole, TikTok and social media and algorithms where people think, oh, well, if I can, there's some people, but I'll just say what's his name? There's a guy in England, Matt Shaw. Everything he does is basically an algorithmic, sort of um, like he writes things
Yeah,
because
he's
of the
aimed at the
market.
algorithm. Yeah.
And he comes up with things like Dick knows. Like that's great, but there's some other authors that I really admire and respect a lot that are I don't really know them personally, but like Dennis Cooper, for example, what the hell is he writing? You know,
Well, I mean,
it's
somebody once asked Joe Landale what he wrote. He
you're
says,
right,
"I
yeah,
write Joe Landale stuff,"
yeah,
because you never know what Joe's going to write.
yeah,
You like it could be anything, anywhere.
exactly.
It could be surrealism. It could be spy stuff. John Jakes originally, and Michael Moorcock. What the hell was
Oh,
Michael Moorcock writing?
Moorcock.
You know,
I
I
mean,
mean,
Moorcock, like, I adore him. In fact, my character, Ishana of Badath, is 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 sort of like if if you took Red Sonja and Brundleflied her with Elric, you'd have Ishana, right? So, and actually, speaking of Moorcock, as we were, this this book right here, available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle form, contains an
great
official,
illustrations inside.
right, thank you. It's an official Michael Moorcock endorsed Elric story by none other than Matthew Knight from Eternal Winter, who is a return author with us. So,
Awesome. Yeah, my Ada and Donald to me are my version of sort of Fafhrd and Grey Mouser. The
right,
two people who kind of complete each other. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
Um,
Fritz Lieber, man, right? Like, like,
yes,
like his stories. Some of his books haunted me when the first time I read them. I was like, Our Lady of Darkness or Conjure Wife. I was like, holy shit, right?
yes. And again, um, the only reason that they're genre is because they needed to figure out where to put them on a shelf. So
Yeah,
many of these truths. Years ago, when Arthur C. Clarke was big, 2001 was big, and all that,
right.
he wrote Rendezvous with Rama.
Yes,
Okay, plot of Rendezvous with Rama is a big spaceship comes, people go up and look at the spaceship, right? That's the whole
right.
plot. But they did not put the word science fiction
Interesting.
anywhere on the cover,
Yeah.
and it outsold every other Arthur C. Clarke book that was
Wow.
on any
Interesting.
shelf because it was just put in general fiction.
Yeah. Nice.
And back then, it was a lot more of a ghetto. It's not as much of a ghetto now to be in genre. Now it's
Sure.
almost chic to be genre.
It is
Um,
genre. Yeah,
the
it's
world is
chic.
caught
Yeah.
up with the fact that I'm a pulp loser.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but,
So,
you know,
and
but it's convenience for them
right.
if you can say what it is in an elevator pitch. But it's
Yeah.
got to be more. It's got
Right.
to be more.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that a lot of, queer authors and a lot of, black and brown and Asian authors are, kind of
Finding their voices. Yes.
new
Yes.
voices like Jemison, for example, or Ujin Bacon. I just recently
And
last
Victor
year,
Laval.
right, exactly.
Victor
Yeah.
Laval. I'm going to a reading next week with the week after next with Amy Tan.
Nice.
You know,
I adore Amy Tan. Yeah, that's so cool. As I I think last year I finally made it official. Like I became a full member of SIFWA, and so just watching the nebulas going, yeah, man, Eugene Bacon, right? Yeah, represent,
yeah.
represent.
Hey, uh, what's his face? Chuck Tingle won
Right.
a Stoker Award last year.
That's so
You
that's
know,
so cool. Yeah.
and he's literally a New York Times best-selling author. He still wears his pink hood. It's freaking awesome.
It's
He still
I
goes
mean,
to signings wearing his pink hood.
that's so badass. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
it's
really
just awesome.
I mean
I
there's
I
so
I I think actually he's the son of the unknown comic.
okay.
It makes sense.
I totally remember that. I totally get that reference. Those some of those shows, man, like Charlie's Angels or remember like Future World or uh like some of those spin-offs of, of Michael
Logan's
Crichton's
Run.
stuff. Logan's Run.
Yeah.
I was actually in a book with William F. Nolan. Yeah, it's called Terror Train, right? And you would pick a destination, and we covered, you know, the globe somehow with, with trains and the guy, William J. Grabowski said some really nice things about my story. It's like, holy shit, you've like, you've interviewed Ray Bradbury and whatever, Harlan Ellison. He has some nice things to say about me. That's when like you're doing something right. So for you, what was the first time you were recognized by somebody like a big name author, or then you said, wow, I really feel like I've done something.
And I remember his name now, Marvin Kaye. I don't know why I forgot his name.
Yeah,
He was a really man. Um, when he accepted my story for Weird Tales,
nice.
I was like, I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm, I'm in Weird Tales. I mean, I
you're in
have
Weird Tales.
collections of all the Weird Tales stuff, and like,
Right.
I'm in a Weird Tales issue. I'm like,
Yeah,
holy crap,
right.
and um, that was the one that really like, and then when I saw the poem to Jonathan Mayberry,
Right.
um, it, and I know it was pure luck being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I'm a vampire. I was up at 2 a.m. He got on Facebook and said, "Hey, I need a couple of sword and sorcery poems.
Nice.
Anyone
I
got
love
any?"
that.
And I happen to have a bunch, and I
Yeah.
sent him a bunch, and
Right.
he took
Yeah.
one. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, and that was, and then since then I haven't been able to sell him anything. But but that was the moment when um and I well let me go back further. When I was in college still,
Yeah.
I sent 20 pages of material to Mad Magazine,
Oh, nice.
and um, I had like my A stuff was the first like 10 or 15 pages, but I wanted to have a full 20. So there was a bunch of B stuff, for
Right.
the end
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And of course, they took one of the B ideas, like from
Yeah.
page 19,
Right.
and Paul Coker illustrated. It was the
Oh,
modern uses
wow.
for Velcro. And, I got a note from Nick Meglin, who was editing at the time, and I got a check from Mad Magazine. And then I was in an issue of Mad Magazine. And like I
Right.
grew up being deviated by Mad Magazine, you know? It made me
Yeah.
what I am.
Me
Uh,
too.
and
Me too.
and that was, so but my thing, and this is why Weird Tales means a little more to me, aside from the fact that there's a lineage to it, and I can't tell you the number of paperback reprints of various Weird Tales stories I have in the
Right.
house. I got a huge paperback collection, but I believe that you can sell anywhere once, and it can be a fluke.
Yeah.
If you sell twice, you're at that level. If you sell three times,
Times.
you're a regular contributor.
You're a regular
You're
contributor.
one of the
Yeah.
gang. So I'm still
Yeah.
waiting for my third sale of Weird Tales. But I mean, literally, this series, the
Yeah.
Paradise Investigations, the original short story was going to be a short story that I was going to pitch to Weird Tales,
Wow.
and like 4 or 5 thousand words into it, I'm like, oh, this isn't a short story. Fuck. And then it possessed me, and I wrote the whole book.
Wow.
Um,
Cool.
but because it was looking for new occult detectives. But I was like, that was it, and then I made it in Sherlock Holmes magazine a couple times,
Nice.
and that was again, these are, I got to write a Lynn Lash story. Lynn Lash was one of the characters that Lester Dent created,
Oh, okay.
and I wrote that for Altus Press, and I've written a couple of other Lester Dent created characters now for a publisher, and Lester Dent was like my touchstone. He wrote the Doc Savage books, and he's not as good a writer as even Burroughs
Hmm.
or Howard. Howard, I just think is
Hmm.
I think Howard is the Rembrandt
He
of
is like
it's just,
like pigeons from hell.
yeah,
Forget about it, right?
oh my
Yeah.
God. And the adaptation of it on Thriller was not bad.
Not bad.
You know,
Not
yeah,
bad.
it was not bad. Um, but I, the fact that I got to write Lester Dent characters,
Yeah.
was like, and I got to write some Zorro stories for a publisher.
Nice.
And I grew up, I still want to be Guy Williams. I still want to be Zorro.
Nice.
Uh, so, to me, those are the ones that I got to write a couple of THE Cat stories.
Okay.
They never got published, and I ended up changing them into another character.
Yeah.
Um, the publisher lost the rights, but PHE Cat was one of those guys I wanted to grow up to be.
Wow.
Robert Loggia. So,
Yeah.
I've been incredibly blessed that
Yeah.
I've met famous people on sets.
Yeah.
I've met famous artists. I've written characters that help formate who I am.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm 70 years old, and
Yeah.
I've lived most of my life more or less by my own terms. Not always with the money I wanted,
Right.
but I've done stuff that, to me, they were just jobs. But when I tell people, they go, "Oh, that's cool." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, it was." But I was just doing it. So when you're in the middle of it, you can't tell. But
Yeah.
as I look back on some, yeah, that was kind of cool. I met Lillian Gish once.
Nice. Oh,
Um,
wow. Lillian
and
Gish, man.
I met. I was at a screening for At the Earth's Core, which goes right back to Carolyn Monroe. It was a press
Yeah.
screening for Earth the Earth's Core, and I
Nice.
was waiting in the lobby, and this little old woman comes out and goes, "Did you like the movie?" I said, "Oh yeah, really fun." She says, "I knew Mr. Burroughs. I love all his books. That was
Uh-huh.
a pretty good version." I said, "Yes." We chatted a little, and she walked off. And my buddy, who was the reviewer who got me in as his plus one,
Right.
said, "Who was the old broad?" I said, "Oh, it's just Lillian Gish." And
Just
I thought
Lillian
he was
Gish. Oh
going to,
my God. Yeah,
oh,
that's a
Mary, right there in front of me.
silent era legend, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and she was the tiniest human being I've ever seen. She might have been 4 foot, like 11 or
Oh
something. It
wow.
really,
Yeah.
but there was steel in her.
Lillian Gish, man.
Yeah, you could see it in her eyes. There was still, and this was in 73 or 74.
Yeah.
So she was up there. I don't even remember when she died, but I mean, it was got to be pretty close to the end. So,
Wow.
I've been incredibly blessed, and I get to meet people like you, and I get to be in books with people like being in a book that has a Michael Moorcock forward, and with some of the names that are going to be in the second book, I'm like, I can't believe that my name is in like the same table of contents as some of these people. These are
Right.
the people that I hold up.
Right.
It's you know, maybe some of the greatness will rub off.
Yeah, right. I
Uh,
mean, exactly. Like
uh,
one thing that is I will just admit this because who cares, but one of the reasons I do these anthologies is because I don't even I mean I know, Mabry is a friend of mine, he's a contributor to at least the Clive Barker book, but you know, I don't submit I don't submit to places. I mean, I've got like Horsley's Trash Press is my other publisher, and that's it, right? Nocturnicorn Books. And the reason is very simple. I don't want to ever experience rejection again. And I get to put my name, my little name next to John Shirley, right?
uh,
It's like, who's gonna say no, man? Nobody can gatekeep my ass, right? I get to say Anna Taborska, Alex S. Johnson. Who's gonna, you can't say Lucy
yeah.
Taylor, right? Who's gonna say no to me except for me? So, and I get to do this, and a lot of these people are like very close friends of mine. Anna Taborska is a very close and dear friend of mine.
She,
I think the
my friend,
relationships
she
are important.
co-edited. She co-edited Discontinued If Death Ensues with my friend Carol, who
Carol.
literally drove me to the doctor today.
Oh wow.
She's my first reader, and I'm her first reader. Carol
Nice.
Dysander.
That's beautiful. That's
They won the
beautiful.
Stoker last year for their anthology.
Right,
So
exactly.
it's it's a very small world. It
It's a
really
very
is.
small
It's
world,
everything's in a
right?
circle.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah, her
it's like
stuff is great.
right, and it's like one of my best friends, and actually, we collaborated on a book. We wrote a book, and I'm working on a novel with her, Sandy DeLuca, right? And she like wrote some books with Marge Simon, and so it gets to the point where you say one person can vet another person. I was friend requested by Mort Castle, right? Mort Castle. He's like, "You got the stuff, kid." I'm like, I can die now. Thank you, right? It's just like
All I can
right?
say, you won't submit. That must make you a top. Um, so
Well, yeah, but
it's all that leather and swords.
well,
No, but
actually, yeah,
and I think the thing is, of all of the arts, I think most writers, not all, some are like stone cold businessmen, but certainly pulp writers, horror writers, and fantasy writers. Maybe not so much science fiction. They tend to
yeah,
be more science, more accountant types. But I think the rest of us do it because we love it. And if nobody was
right.
paying us, we'd do it anyway.
We would do it anyway. Yeah,
It's like I have to let the voices in my head out, or they'll yell, they'll
yeah,
drown me out. And I'm
yeah,
tired of the drill. The holes in my head are hurting,
yeah.
so I have to get it out another way.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think it was like Lucy Taylor told me once it was sort of like, she has to let the demons out, she'll like let the
yeah,
demons
absolutely.
dance, right? Yeah.
And I will tell you this: of all of the different writing groups, mystery writers, romance writers, science fiction writers, um, and fantasy and science fiction sort of get, and horror writers, the horror writers as a group are the nicest, most egalitarian people, the most open, the least, they might be opinionated, but they're the least bigoted.
Yeah.
They'll be glad to give you their opinion, but they'll do it with love.
Right.
And they're the nicest group of people to be amongst.
Right.
It's just
Exactly.
amazing.
It really
If I
is.
didn't write horror, I would have to write horror just so I could hang out with these people.
Oh, right. Me
You
too.
know?
Me too. Right.
Um,
Yeah. Like I was talking about Anna Taborska, right? You were mentioning her, and
yeah.
like she
And
and
again, somebody who's multi talented. She doesn't just write. She's in the film world and
exactly.
art world. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, and she and Priya Sharma and Lee Bales and I have this kind of a running sort of email chain. It's basically like, "How are you doing, my lovelies?" And we give each other a squeezy hug,
Uh,
I'm big into squeezins, and she's like so open. Lee is a beautiful man as well. He's also a filmmaker, and we're writing a book called Meat Grinder. It's extremely
I
wrong.
was going to say, are you talking about my dating life? Uh,
Okay, so yeah, I see what you did there. Yeah,
TMI, TMI.
we recently wrote a story. I'll say it's called Cheeky, and um, I don't want to give too much away, but rodents and Richard Gere, and it's sort of, yeah,
Okay,
gimp,
I get all the references. You don't have to
you
spell it
know,
out. Yep.
gimp masks and Crisco, and it's sort of an automated rodent delivery system, and it just I was like, we're
I,
gonna actually
I,
publish this in my magazine.
I went to art school in the West Village. I
So,
completely get it.
so you completely get it, right?
In
That's
the
like
70s, before
in the
AIDS, so I
70s, before
completely
AIDS.
get it.
You know, like one of my friends, speaking of, that adjacency or whatever, you were talking about masters and slaves and tops and bottoms. I'm actually in a book called Master Slave, which is a bit on the nose, but with Pat Califia, right? Pat Califia is in the book next to me, and I'm like, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, you know, right?
You are. That's the
But
thing.
I
You are.
am,
You're there.
right?
That's I look, imposter syndrome. Even Jonathan Mayberry, who literally writes hundreds of millions of
Right,
words a day,
right,
is in every medium there. He talks about himself having imposter syndrome.
right.
And I mean, it. What I do when I have that
Yeah.
is I go, oh, okay, Carol believes in me, and Jamie believed in me,
Listen,
and my writers believe. I'm not
right.
going to disappoint them. I think
No,
they're intelligent, so I'm not going to insult them by saying I'm a failure.
that's a really good way to
I
look
look
at
at
it.
people that I respect because if these people are content to be your friend and to
Yes,
respect you and to want to work with
right,
you, and you think they're good people, then they
right.
can't be wrong
They
because you
can't
don't
be
want to
wrong.
make you don't want to exactly you do not want to piss them off
Exactly.
because they're
So,
crazy.
yeah. Speaking of which, a shout out to Iris Berry. We just put out actually, just put out my sixth poetry collection, which is dedicated to her. She's a beautiful woman. This is her on the, holding a typewriter
Great shot.
that was used by William S. Burroughs, to write Naked Lunch. And she's literally nude as she's wearing like black stiletto heels and shades
And a typewriter.
and the Naked Lunch typewriter. So shout out to Iris
Uh-huh.
Berry. Mwah! Yeah, she is so beautiful and so, and she and Pleasant Gaiman are just like they're kind of a magic couple, so my hearts. Um, I I want to ask you about, so we're talking about, so I'm writing a couple of books now. One of them is called Mistress of Graves. It was actually a friend, actually a former friend, who was, I guess, knew Pete Steele or something or other. And their friend dubbed them Mistress of Graves, and I just basically stole that. I was just like, that's too
Great
good to
title.
pass off. You
Yeah.
pass, pass
I mean,
on,
that's a very Poe title,
It
a
is,
Poe or Lovecraft. I mean,
or
it's just,
Lovecraft.
yeah,
And
that's
immediately
prime.
made me think of would make like a great Dario Argento film, like Mother of
Yes.
Tears and Mistress of Graves is sort of like the fourth mother or something, which
Yeah.
Thomas de Quincey forgot to write about, the scariest of them all. You're right. Mater something or other.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you, Teal, about like how so the long haul, the novel is well, I have a collaborator, shout out to Michael Kobe, uh and that the long haul, or as I think I've written, my first published novel was Jason X Death Moon, which is an official canonical Friday the 13th spinoff, and it got terrible reviews and still like people still read it and they're obsessed with how bad it is. You know, right?
You know what? Most of my movies are fall into that category. And like, but I did good work. You did good work.
Right,
They don't like it.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
Pat Cadigan, who wrote the first in the series, said, "Hey, Alex, don't worry about it. They don't like her stuff either.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have enough Jason in it or whatever." But so between short stories, like you and I probably can whip out a short story. That sounds wrong. Everything talking to you for
Pardon
some
me.
reason, I
You
got
know, let's get
this.
into the locker room. It's all the same. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it just like
Hardly want
feels
to
like
whip it
I
out.
could just like, whip out a short story, or if I'm working with Michael Kobe or Lee Bales, whatever, we can do it in a day or less than a day. But or Sandy DeLuca for that matter. But you know, the short story seems to kind of almost gestate. You have the it writes itself, and with if you and I, we're both character driven kind of guys, right? So, but
Yeah.
with a novel, do you ever kind of like sit down and write a sort of rough, like, well, basic block it out, or
I
action
am very much,
scenes, for
but
example?
the novel I'm working on now,
Yeah,
alias Johnny Drew. Um, I decided that I wanted to try and do something different.
yeah,
I was going to try and outline it. So
right.
I have 2 weeks worth of these mad scribbles and notes. And
Wow.
for 2 weeks, I couldn't write. And I got so fucking constipated. I said, screw it. And I just started writing because I just, I work a lot better when I'm doing it on jazz, when I have
Yeah,
not being rigid about it.
right,
I actually am a little bit better at plotting a short story per se because it has to have that through line, so it has to be short. I have to kind of know where it's going.
right.
With a novel, there's for me the one I'm working on now is my 54th novel, and
Oh,
most of
wow.
my short stories I write in series anyway.
Yeah.
And I write series of stories um, that often connect and call back
Me
because
too.
once I create a world, I like to hang around in it.
Right?
But for a novel, um, the trick is just having an idea that's big enough,
Yeah.
and
That's what she
then
wanted.
realizing, you know, yeah, and real, and because to me, a short story is the last chapter of a novel.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it should be.
Right.
It's like where things end,
Yeah.
or where things begin.
Right.
Like I said, the first of these Paradise Investigations, Not Born of Woman, was going to be a short story. And I had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I got to the end and I said, this isn't the end. There's so
Yeah.
much more to this character. And and then I launched into a novel having no idea what I was going to do. And it was a one-off,
Wow.
you know. And it was like, but the character wouldn't leave me. He still won't leave me.
Nice.
Um, it's the Frankenstein monster as a PI
Right.
in
Oh,
39.
nice.
But so he won't leave me. So I've got a commitment for three more books. Um, I've
Nice.
got these three out. I got three more, so I'm going to start on that in September. But it's having an idea that's big enough, and um, I worried with this last one that it was not going to be long enough
Hmm.
because I wanted to make them around 70,000 words.
Yeah.
Um, and I tend to write shorter. I'm my pulp background. I write 40, 50,000 word books, and I had to learn to stretch myself.
Right.
Again, create a couple of subplots. But in
Right.
this case, I got it done, and then I'm like, why this has to end here? But wait a minute, it doesn't have to begin here. And then I realized I'd written a short story, which actually was a prologue to the novel. And I pulled that
Nice.
short story, and suddenly it made sense. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, my subconscious did that to me.
Yeah.
That my subconscious had set me up. I'd written a short story months before I started the book,
Yeah.
but it was an incident that's mentioned in the book. And I'm like, well, it
Yeah.
makes sense that we see the incident. And so, and suddenly it was a 69,000 word book. It was like, there we go. So my subconscious did that for me,
Yeah.
but it's, it's, um, my biggest fear is not it not being long enough and not creating enough subplot to keep it going
Yeah.
because the idea has to be big enough, but it also has to have, there's got to be a rhythm. Again, I think of this as jazz. And so
Yeah.
I have to feel a rhythm to the book. There has to
Right.
be a certain kind of up and down, a relaxation period, up,
Sure.
down, it's got,
Right.
and hopefully end on a crescendo.
Yeah.
It's got to end with a kick in the butt. It's got to like,
Right.
bam. Um,
Yeah.
my Ideally it should end with the last sentence or the last word, but
Right.
I'm not Mickey Spillane. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm getting close, I hope.
Yeah.
But but for the book, it's just basically saying, is the idea big enough? And
Right.
that may be with the character. Is
Right.
the character big enough to inhabit the world? And he
Yeah.
is big enough emotionally, and
Right.
and his sub characters are all interesting, so I can
Right.
do things. Because with each of these, I only had a theme that I wanted to write.
Yeah.
I didn't have a plot. I had a theme, and like in the third one, it's zombies, and
Yeah.
he goes into and for me, I wanted it was the mood that I wanted. The
Hmm.
theme was the mood,
Yeah.
um, and actually, there's a continuing character in the series. His next door neighbor, who's a friend of his, is a transvestite. It's
Oh, wow.
1939, so
Yeah.
he's Donald, and then he's Dottie,
Oh, wow.
and then they're Dottie, and
Yeah.
and like and he goes to New Orleans, and he's looking for somebody, and the letter that they sent to somebody else is from the Cafe Lafayette,
Oh,
which
wow.
was the first gay bar in the country,
Wow.
and
I didn't know
so
that.
uh, and so I spent a lot of time doing the research,
Yeah.
but Dottie gives him a letter of introduction because Dottie had been there,
Wow.
and says,
Nice.
they may not open up to you, but here, this will let them know that you're not there for nefarious purposes. You're actually just
Exactly.
looking for this guy to help him.
Yeah.
And um, because his whole thing is always subcultures. It's
Right.
he's he's the elder outsider, so it's
Yeah.
always about dealing with the underdogs who needs his help. You
Yeah.
know, because he's the elder. He does like me. He doesn't understand humanity's stupid prejudices and crap. Um, and only he's bigger than me, so he can enforce his will.
Right.
He's 7'2". I'm
Yeah.
not quite that tall. Um, but it's the theme, but my theme was I wanted to deal with that and the Jim Crow laws,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how I was going to pull it together.
Yeah.
Um, and again, that's why it was hard to write because I had to read so much shit about the horrors that went on down there.
Yeah.
Um, and but I think I did it, and I found enough rhythm in it to
Yeah.
to give me the book. Um, and but that's it. I basically it's like I said, I have a theme,
Hmm.
and it has to be a big enough theme or emotionally big enough to
Yeah.
justify various adventures. Some of my books are very episodic. This is not
Right.
episodic. These aren't, but um, actually, I wrote Ada Dunnell, the characters in the story you've got.
Yeah.
Um, I wrote every one of the stories to take place 2 weeks after the previous story.
Oh, wow.
And when I had enough stories together,
Yeah.
they were a novel. And
Yeah.
then it was very little work to connect them.
Yeah. That's
Um,
kind of how Michael Kobe and I write because, for example, we wrote this book called Dragula, which was inspired by Hammer films.
great.
Right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And actually, like speaking of like, okay, so a mutual friend of me and Evan J. Peterson, Wendy Wagner, right, who does Nightmare
Uh-huh.
Magazine, right? And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're right, you know Wendy, and so, and we had her on the show with my dear friend Trisha Warden, who's like with Henry Rollins, 21361,
Being
right?
Swall, do you know Kevin Shinnick?
I don't know Kevin Shinnick. No, I
Uh,
don't know.
he was publisher for Nightmare Magazine
Oh, okay.
for a while.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So yeah, so it goes like this. So Evan came under my radar because he had interviewed Clive Barker, and he's also and and he said he was a perfect gentleman. He posed nude for him. He didn't, whatever. And I was like, okay, well that tallies with my. I mean, Clive seems ethical. And also, and he was also when Wendy was a guest editor for Nightmare for the Queers Destroy Horror, um, you know, issue. And
I
I actually,
remember that call.
exactly, right. And I had
Yeah.
actually her and Trisha on my show, and we sort of did a little improv, like a sort of a neurodivergent improv. Like if we were to put a book out, like what would we want to something just improvise we came up with some really weird titles, like it was basically all variations on queers destroy shit. And I
Uh-huh.
and I
Uh-huh.
love speaking of I had Peaches Christ on the show, Peaches. So I was like, holy
Uh-huh.
shit, you made All About Evil. Talk about a
Uh-huh.
masterpiece, right? That is such a brilliant film, and Josh was really incredibly talented. But what was my point? It was no point. It was a kind of like meandering because I'm associating like Wendy and then Evan Peterson. And also, you're welcome to submit something for the Clive Barker book if that's because I'm thinking, I like to have people from every kind of walk of life, but we are very much, pro LGBTQIA plus. We're neurodivergent, AF, and this is just how things roll. A lot of, you know, artists and authors are both, queer and neurodivergent because pattern recognition.
I always tell people that my acting career, me and Charlton Heston, for 90% of my acting career, I didn't wear pants. It was either tights or kilts. Um, and I'm a sissy.
You're a
Um,
sissy, yeah.
CISE.
Yeah.
Um, but well, I have a story that might work. It
Okay.
takes place in a haunt, but um, you send me the specs, so
Okay,
I'll see if
cool.
it
Yeah.
actually does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Like we have, Kate Kieran is actually writing the introduction. And it's actually has written the introduction and 6 months ago, and I call her Bubbles because she's sort of like the mythological beast from 1,000 fathoms. Every once in a while, she will resurface and send me a response to something that was went way, 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 way back. She has I sent her my copy of Agents of Dreamland for her to inscribe like a year ago. And she's like, she keeps saying, first she said she was going to send it immediately. And she's like, I lost it. And then I said, well, I can buy, whatever silk or whatever. And she says, no, don't. I'm going to find my copy. But it's kind of like karmic, it's a karmic thing for me because, okay, we met in 1994 over remember Genie? Right? Genie, like the pre AOL is pre AOL is like text
Oh
only.
God, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
right?
like
Yeah. And that's
boards were happening.
and
Yeah.
that's actually how I met Caitlin because she was doing the Poppy Z Bright forum on Genie. And then you had people like Nancy Kilpatrick were part of the Rest in Peace. And then so where was I going? Oh yeah, so I was, emailing back and forth with Kate, and then she told me about her novel that she wrote, Five of Cups. She said, "Would you like to read?" And I was like, yeah. And so she sent it to me as a floppy disk. This is how far back we're
The
going,
big old foot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? It's a thump, and and then I lost it. And bless her heart, she didn't like ream me a new one. She said, I'll send you another one. I think I lost that one too. So like when, I met her at World Horror in Atlanta, and this is like it was her debut reading, and she was totally fucked up. And she came out and like I think Poppy had just read from Exquisite Corpse for the first time. And then Kate comes in and she reads like Bela's Cape or whatever. You wouldn't know that she was wasted because right, it was just a really, really amazing performance.
Pros can pull the energy up, and then I've seen guys who had fevers go on stage, do the
Yeah,
show, walk off stage, and fall down. You
right.
know, well, they say there's a in the procrastinators club.
Yeah.
If you send in an application within 3 years when you hear of them, you're not qualified.
See, this is like really clever, clever, dumb verbal wit that I grew up when I was a kid. I remember reading like S.J. Perlman and and
For me,
all
it was
the
Thurber,
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 right? Thurber,
and and Parker.
Parker.
And
Yeah.
do you know that Dorothy Parker? And I want to include her in one of my books. I can't do it yet, but Dorothy Parker. One of the reasons that she eventually got kind of pushed out of the Algonquin circle was that she went over to Spain during the Spanish Civil War and saw the atrocities that were going on and came back and tried to get people to intervene and stop the Nazis in 36. And Hollywood didn't want to deal with it. And so she was
Yeah.
so annoying that they basically pushed her away. She was
They,
such an activist.
they did not like her. She gave her entire estate to Martin Luther King. And
Yes, she
wh-
was an activist all the way to the end.
when she was so I could totally relate to this. I remember reading one of her because I fucking adore Dorothy Parker, and the movie too with Jennifer Jason Leigh. Oh my God, But yeah, so Dorothy Parker, she was also had a cameo in a Hitchcock film. right? Like
Yes,
right, like Notorious or North by Northwest or
yes,
something
yes,
like that.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
or Sabotage. I think it might have been Sabotage, but
Sabotage. Notorious was later.
right. So
Yeah.
I just like lover stuff, and I've got like several complete Dorothy Parkers because one does, right, as one does. And so I used to teach composition because I'm a compositionist. That's my skill. Yeah, I mean my I'm certified certified in composition and rhetoric.
Your marketable skill
My
as
marketable
opposed to
skills,
the
right? Right. It was like so. After I couldn't get a job in teaching anymore. I thought my life was over. But it was just beginning, and so I kind of pivoted to writing because so actually this is I'm just going to roll with being neurodivergent.
I love free. I told you I love jazz. It's free
Yeah,
form, baby.
right.
Go for
Ornette Coleman, man. So like so I got to give like a huge fucking shout out to well, there's several people that have helped me out in my career, but one of them is John Shirley, man. So, man, I sound like Dennis Hopper in Apocalypse Now. John Shirley, man. If you know
it.
the man, he's a genius, but his soul is mad. And though, yeah, Heart of Darkness, baby. So, yeah, John Shirley was one of the first people who endorsed me, and I'm like my book, The Death Jazz, and that was became about because I couldn't get a job teaching, and so I was like, well, I can write, but I'm not paying my bills. So, well, it was sort of, I felt very desperate for a long time. I felt like a complete failure. And I was living in LA at the time in South Bay, which is like Redondo Beach, Torrance, and those
Yeah.
places, and super wealthy. And, it's like in the poor area of these wealthy, you know, cities. And I, when I was teaching, I'd heard about this woman named Ellen May because from, one of my co-instructors said, you like, like poetry and you like, stuff like, X and Exene and John Doe. And I was like, yeah, man, I love that stuff. And they said, well, Beyond Baroque. And I was like, I've been there. She said, well, you gotta meet Ellen. She's fabulous. And so I was like, how do I encounter this paragon? And she said, well, just hunt her down on Facebook, right? So I was like, I search, and so there she is, right? She's totally accessible. She even has an AOL account. She still has an AOL account. That's how old
I still
school.
have an AOL account. I am
Okay.
a dinosaur. I have an AOL
So,
account. Okay.
right. So I didn't realize how famous she was. She had Exene's job at Beyond Baroque. So when Exene was working there, and was in the bookstore, and Ellen maybe kind of replaced her. And so, I told her about, she's immediately always interested in encouraging people like Iris Berry. They're very close friends as well, and very proud to have brought them back together, and because Ellen's got a little isolated, yeah, after COVID, but I think she kind of prefers it now. However, so I told her what I was doing, and she said, "Well, why don't you publish it?" And I said, "Well, okay, I can self-publish because that was when Create Space was coming up." And so also
Yeah.
at Beyond Baroque, and I was like, "You do that for me?" She's like, "Sure." So I had Richard Modiano, who was the head, who was formerly the executive director of Beyond Baroque, which is like the Shakespeare Company of the West Coast, right? And he was like, he
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, once Ellen vouches for you, once you come on board, we can do a reading here." And before I knew it, I was in the ecosystem of people like Patti Smith and Dennis Cooper and that kind of thing, right? I was like reading it Beyond Baroque, where Iris Berry, Pleasant Gaiman, like fucking legends. And then I became friends with these people. So got to give
See, and now
huge
they're
credit to
they're a
Ellen.
legend. Now you're a myth
I'm a
or a
myth, right?
myther, depending,
I'm a mythster.
you know.
Hey, Teal, that just remembered. Do you remember Robert Aspirin? So I
Oh
love those
God,
books.
yes.
Myth
Myth adventure.
Adventures.
Oh God,
Myth,
yes. I have a couple
yeah.
of them somewhere here.
I used
I'm
to,
I'm very big on puns. My Jack Silence series is all horrible puns or wonderful puns, depending on your point of view.
right.
You know,
I
I
also,
love that stuff.
yeah, Robert Aspirin and Myth Inc. and all those things. I also used to, he is problematic. I'm not saying he's not, but
A lot of people from the period were problematic.
you know,
I think that I had to burn my Darkover books at one point. It's
yeah.
like
Well, yeah,
just
Marion Zimmer Bradley, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I actually met her at World Fantasy. And this is really weird because it was like my first big con, and I think George Martin was the, guest of honor, and then we had who else was there? A lot of people were there. Yeah, and it was in New Orleans with, I was first met Poppy Bride, and I was like, well, she's awfully small. Like awfully like a almost like this uncanny kind of like a Lovecraftian doll or something, just it's like
The hobbits like to write too.
yeah, the hobbits. Yeah, the hobbits. Yeah, well, that's what I called this my my interview with Dio. It's like old hobbits die hard because he loved fantasy. One of his favorites was, remember Asterix and Obelix, the whole the
Again,
Gauling.
I have a couple here, and
Yeah,
I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie with Gerald Depardieu
I
as
didn't
Obelix.
I didn't realize that there was a film,
They've
but
done two live action movies,
oh,
and
nice.
Gerald Depardieu plays Obelix, the big chubby guy.
Well, I mean, I would like watch him in just about anything. He's very, very interesting actor. Like there's some actors
I loved his
I
Cyrano.
just like,
God Almighty, I love Cyrano.
right? And he made a couple of comedies like Le Chiffre, The Goat, and with a forget the other actor, but they're hilarious. I mean, there's sort of like a odd
I, I,
couple
I was
detective.
going to say
Yeah,
they're kind of like if Columbo and Clouseau were partners.
exactly. Yeah,
You know.
exactly. Those are so much fun. And I actually have these two characters. I call them the soft detectives, and they just appeared one day. And one of them is basically like he's visually, physically like he's John Skip, and the other is Samuel L. Jackson. So if you can just
Uh,
imagine that kind of, and they're always
uh,
bickering, and the Samuel L. Jackson character, whose name is Sweetback Glide, he's always saying, I will bring the hard pussy. Like, I don't know, for some reason, one day I just thought of this as like a very surreal kind of a threat. Like, what would be the hard pussy? Because I was watching a lot of Tarantino movies, and I was thinking,
uh,
getting into the kind of the rhythm of it, and thinking, well, I like Tarantino. Some people don't, but it's when,
I can take him in small doses. Some
yeah,
of his films I like. Some of them I'm like, nah. That's just he just xeroxed a bunch of other movies.
yeah,
So
well, and then
I Foxy
yeah,
Brown is great. I think that's his
yeah.
best movie. Um,
So,
but then he had great people to work with. You know,
what was your favorite, like? It doesn't matter if it was a prestige film or a TV show, or it was just like a grade Z B flick, whatever. What was your favorite film to work on, of all time?
I gotta say, probably Lord of the G Strings, and
Okay,
I will say that
okay.
all I was able to bring all my buddies in to do the fight stuff, and the girls. I mean, I've got a you know,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
wow. This yeah,
you know,
so
the girls were really sweet, and they were
well
fun to
turn
play
it.
with. I'm in there.
I wonder if this
An
is
article on me.
I wonder if it's got
Kevin edited that.
who? What? Terry, right?
Kevin Sinek, yeah, I believe Kevin edited that. I think there's an article on there actually.
Okay, yeah, so this is like the guys like wanted me to, you know, be their editor. They actually came to Pasadena to meet with me. But by this point I think I was too high. And so I really missed the opportunity, but they weren't really going to pay me either. So um I didn't really miss anything. But
The other thing is that I worked as a dance extra on I don't even remember the title of it, but it was with Judge Reinhold.
oh
But I
wow.
got to work with Jacques Dubois, the dancer from Seven Brides, Seven Brothers. He was the
Okay.
choreographer, and it
Nice.
was just kind of cool to be with him. That and the day that I spent up on the Spencer set with Hawk beating the crap out of me. That
Oh,
was like the
nice.
coolest. I had, I love the books, and
Hmm.
then actually got to see Parker and got an autograph from him. And when I told him about being in the show, the autograph to me was Hawk was lucky,
Right.
and I will treasure that until they put me in a box.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but yeah, I gotta say
That
what the other thing was Jersey Justice was a great set to be on, but Lord of the G Strings was the most fun because it was crazy.
this is my interview
Oh
with
God,
Sonny
yeah,
Collette, right? Yeah, the
yeah,
Dinosaur Valley Girls, right?
yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah, so Spencer actually it's a kind of a mini homage. Nobody will like know what will pick up on it, but the book A Mistress of Graves, shout out to Michael Kobe. Oh, and Blair Murphy. Blair Murphy had Juggler Wine, right? And the
Uh,
vampire documentary. But one of my characters in Mistress of Graves is named Spencer, right? It's a homage to Robert Walker, but it's also a homage to, you know, Herbert Spencer,
yeah.
right? Or is it Herbert or is it I've actually got the full Fairy Queen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually I don't remember his first name,
Yeah.
and I've used it in the story.
Edmund
Edmund
Spencer. Edmund Spencer.
Edmund Spencer.
What's fascinating about him is like he was actually, even in his day, his diction was archaic because he was trying to be Chaucer, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he went for a very specific style.
yeah. But I
You
mean,
know, and
I adore
I
that.
kind of likened it. I likened it to when they do Ren Fair speak, where
Right,
they add E's and thous just to sound cool, and that's sort of
right.
Spencer's stuff.
Exactly.
You know,
Like, yeah, I had some.
actually, the one I love is Lord Darcy.
Okay,
Um, I love Dunsany, rather Lord Dunsany.
Lord
The
Dunsany. Yeah,
Dunsany stuff. Oh, I love not so much the Queen of Elfland's Daughter, but his short stories.
yeah,
I tried to get a series going with just doing his short stories because to me they're pre-Twilight Zone Twilight Zones. They're
yeah.
beautiful little fairy tales. Um,
I'm trying to think of some of the people. Well, I definitely adore Clark Ashton Smith, and I consider him a better writer than Lovecraft. And he's
oh yeah,
yeah,
technically he
technically
understands what a plot is. He
right.
understands what a middle and end is, which
Yeah,
Lovecraft never did.
yeah, yeah. And actually, there's a really beautiful kind of connection because I also adore Baudelaire, and John Shirley said Alexis Johnson's the Baudelaire of our time, right? He wrote that, and for one of my poetry collections. I was just like, I stared at that email for, it's like, refresh my, what? That's John Shirley, man. You know, he didn't just, he doesn't just say things like casually, I mean, right? So I was
What
like,
matter? Like I
so
said, it's take off the imposter hat because
take up the
you ain't.
imposter hat. Because so I had to like upgrade my self-image with that one. I was like, like you were saying, Teal, I mean, if somebody who like he's beyond respected and the man wrote The Crow, right? So you gotta say props to John Shirley, but so that made me think, well, I now have something aspirational. And there's a connection here. Well, Clark Ashton Smith, right, also fashioned himself along the Baudelaire lines as well. I
Yeah,
mean, especially early in his career when he was sort of more of uh, like a
it
flaneur.
was more of a fantasist and less of a
Yeah,
genre. It
yeah,
was much more of a traditional concept of like again, much more like Lord Darcy.
yeah,
There was a concept of being a fantasist or fabulist as
yeah,
opposed to a horror writer or a science fiction writer.
right.
It hadn't really solidified yet as a genre.
Right,
You
exactly.
know,
And I think what's the beautiful thing about like what what I'm doing, I think, well, I have, when you have people like Mort Castle saying you got the goods kid or you got the stuff kid, it's like, okay, you got to respect the man, He's Mort
yeah.
Castle, right? So when I started doing Nocturnicorn books like a decade ago, and then over time, we published original stuff, and we published original John Shirley's, Christy Nogle, Anna Taborska. We had Graham Masterton write one of our forewords, So he's like, okay, so you're doing something right. Lucy Taylor, Sephora Giron, etc., et al., David Niall Wilson, and
Yeah.
people like that. So gotta respect that. And there was a point there.
David, by the way, is one of my editors on this.
Oh
He
wow,
I
yeah,
cross.
he's so cool. Some other
They are
people
the
like
coolest to work with. They are
Jasper
the coolest.
Bark. Do you know Jasper Bark? He he's
No, I don't
he
know, Jasper.
yeah, he's was he is he in, I want to say Scotland, but yeah, Jasper is like a Splatterpunk Award winner and Bram Stoker nominee, and he's publishes a lot with Joe Meinhardt. He's really, really talented and weird, like exceptionally weird. Also, we published original stuff by Lauren Soros, who I also had on the show, and I'm trying to figure out what I intended to say. Um, so maybe I'll just go with jazz to flow. Like um,
I, you
Joe
know,
Pulver, right? Joe Pulver was a friend of mine, rest in peace, and he was into jazz, and a lot of his stuff. Oh yeah, with the, was the Baudelaire, the whole Baudelaire thing, and
with Clark
well,
Ashton Smith,
with Clark
and
Ashton Smith.
yeah,
And actually, Joshi was gonna to do the show with me. We were gonna do it in person because he did something in Auburn, and then he absolutely evaporated. Like he just like poof, like what the earth swallowed him up. And I was like, did something uncanny happen to Joshi? Right?
well, ancient aliens, according to the television, they're responsible for everything.
They
The
are
History Channel, ancient aliens did it, and I believe them.
there
You know,
there are things out there that are uncanny, and I cannot emphasize enough. Oh yeah, here's another one of our books. He said stalling for time as he's trying to retrieve, but so
it'll come.
this
Yeah.
was like that's what she wanted. The 13 signs, the 13 signs. This was we put out, when would we put this out? It was 2016, and we had people like Raven Dane. We had Tim Dry here, Amelia Mangan, and Dean M. Drinkle was the editor. And actually, we're going to do a new one. It's called because by popular demand. Actually, speaking of, okay, so I'm gonna put everything in one frame. So Nicole Six, close friend, collaborator, and Weird Tales alumnus. She was in the Weird because she's a besties with Mayberry. She was in one of the Weird Tales with Carol Geisender, you mentioned, and Kate Kiernan
Yes.
and Ramsey Campbell, who we've also published.
Yep.
And right, it's a great, he's one of the greats, you know, carrying on that, the
I, I got
Lovecraft.
to I got to I got to moderate a panel at World Fantasy Con a couple years ago up in Niagara Falls. Slowly I turned, and Ramsey was on,
Oh my
and that was
God.
really an experience because we were talking weird tales,
Yeah.
and the English like weird Renaissance and stuff. It was really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Um, I've,
Yeah.
I've I've rubbed shoulders with some of the greats,
Yeah. That
hoping for some crumbs to fall off the table,
hoping for some crumbs like the and talk about imposter syndrome, like, okay, you're gonna say what the fuck is wrong with you, Alex? Well, in like 1995,
That's separate from
that's
this.
okay, that is absolutely, diagnostic, but the so the World Horror Convention, and I was like feeling kind of, well, Thomas Roche had actually signed me up for some panels for World Fantasy, and I didn't feel secure enough to participate. I could have, but so the next time around, I was sort of like, I'm going to sign myself up for some panels, and I got really ambitious. And I was like, well, they didn't seem to, gatekeep me from I could sign up for whatever. And I'm a huge fan of Giallo, mystery crime thrillers and Dario Argento and all that stuff. So there was a panel. It had um, the late great he always reminded me of an actor um who's in the movie Being John Malkovich. So he wrote Wet Work. Philip Nutman.
Oh,
Philip
Philip K.
Nut.
Dick.
Yeah, no, no, Philip Nutman. Phil
Oh,
Nutman.
not okay.
Nutman. Yeah, he was like, I was like, I met him like, you're uncannily, John Malkovich. He was a really nice person. He's no longer with us, rest in peace. But so it was like it was Philip Nutman, and then you had the guy. Um, he was Darth Vader physically. He was
Dave Prowse.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Prowse, and then and Straub, and then when I think I woke up the next day, after liberally imbibing, I was like, holy shit, I signed up to be on a panel with Peter Straub and Dave Prowse, and I was like, and I couldn't. It's just like I
Come
wasn't
on.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
well, it eventually, but that's just it. It happens eventually. But just remember, he may have been Darth Vader, but he was also the big guy in Circus of Horror. So
yeah.
it's that
So
old. And he was the monster from hell. He was
he was
Frankenstein's
the
monster.
monster from hell. So yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, Dragcola. So
Yeah.
I want to send you a copy. I want to send you a
Oh,
copy
oh,
of because if you like Hammer horror, you'll love Dragcola because it came about. I was sitting around as I often do when I was sort of free associating. I was like, well, because literally we have David J. Haskins as one of our authors. Bela Lugosi's dead. Thank you. And I
uh-huh.
was thinking, Dracula. I was like a fizzy vampire. It's like, okay, so I will just go with it. And it's like, is it original? Yes. Has it been done? No. There's been
Yeah,
Draculas, but no
yeah,
fizzy, carbonated
yeah.
cyberpunk so it's new. I looked it up. It had never been done. And I was like, so we put out a book called Drag Cola and Other Stories. And it's got titles like Taste the Fizz of Drag Cola and, you know, Brides of Drag Cola. And so we started out, we were going to do a sequel. We're just like, once you get a rhythm going with the collaborator, right? It's like probably like, Skip and Spectre until they weren't, but it was like, just it's jazz. You're Coltrane and Miles, and you're just, whatever. And so we
Yeah.
just started we stopped, we basically I'll start something, he gets all excited, and anyway, it's probably some erotic overtones, but and then so we did a story called there's a sequel to that book called Satanic Rites of Dragula, which kind of led
Uh,
immediately to Mistress of Graves. And have you collaborated? And if so, who's your collaborators?
I haven't. I've collaborated on screenplays,
Yeah.
not on prose. Although I have bioenhanced bounty hunter series, which is
Hmm.
sort of like superheroes of the future. That me and a partner wrote the screenplays. We actually was trying to sell it as a series.
Hmm.
Um, when it didn't sell, I then novelized the screenplay.
Hmm.
So technically, I was collaborating with Jerry because I was writing his stuff, and then I
Yeah.
wrote two books on my own with the characters.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I haven't collaborated much
Yeah.
because my own schedule is so weird that
Right.
you know. But I ah
Brian Masters on
ah
horror. So as I was in London, right, the time I met Caroline Munro, and I'm just a huge fan of Brian Masters. I think I discovered Brian Masters because Poppy Bright and Exquisite Corpse. And so it's like I was looking around for some of these titles, and it's like, and I'm in a bookstore, and it's probably Virgin Books, and I was like, I got to get some Brian Masters that they don't have here, and sure enough, this is one of them. And oh yeah, you know who I had on the show? Maxime Jakubowski. I mean, speaking of like, right, right,
yeah
Maxime, right, like he edited William Golding, right? He
yeah.
edited uh Moorcock.
I got to
So
say one of the books that was a huge revelation for me was
yeah.
the Two Lives of Pincher Martin
Hmm.
by Golding.
Yeah.
That book, that's the first book, and then I read Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. But Pincher Martin was the first book that told me it was okay to be narratively courageous. To like, you know, just go for it.
A
And
quest.
again, I love the words. So
Yeah. A
um,
quest for the
I,
Grail. Yes. Right.
yeah,
So I was thinking, and probably should wrap it up pretty soon, but so okay, I'm gonna ask, like, I'm gonna tell you one of my favorite, works of classic literature, which everybody should read, everybody will enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, you don't have a pulse.
oh
Don Quixote, right? Don Quixote by
God,
Cervantes, right?
oh
It is
God,
has
yes.
everything. I mean, it's funny as hell. It's sad. It's poignant. It's epic. It's mythical. It's masterful. It's postmodern. It's everything.
Again, there, there's the case of when you were talking about a novel
Yeah.
and short stories
Right.
and genres. That's all of them right
Right.
there. It is a novel and it is a big story and it is big characters, but it's also short stories and it's also
Right.
philosophical digressions, but it
Yeah.
all moves forward, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, right. There's another novel in that regard, and that's have you read The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann? That is
No,
it's
no.
just like it's basically nothing happens. You know, I remember like seeing Kurt Vonnegut Jr., lecture at UC Davis, is my alma mater. Go Aggies. And he did this sort of one of his kind of like sort of tongue-in-cheek, you know, charts where he showed
uh,
the rising and falling action of Hamlet. It's basically a straight line, so it's like,
yeah.
this is like a perfectly straight line. It's like nothing happens. And somebody said, well, could you diagram, could you, chart, Madame Bovary or something? He said that was a joke. But so like what is your favorite like classic of literature you think everybody should read? And
Three
yeah,
Musketeers.
Three
Absolutely,
Musketeers,
without a
okay.
doubt, Three Musketeers. It is absolutely the best adventure book, the best historical book. Um, I'm lucky. I have a bunch of different versions, including a couple of sequels. But I have the what was that company that Dover Books
Oh yeah.
reprinted it with the original magazine illustrations,
Oh
those
nice.
beautiful Pentagon illustrations. And I just, I'd seen many versions of the movie. I played Aramis twice.
Nice.
Um, but when I got this and I just read the whole book straight through, I was like, wow. And again, I feel that way about Dracula. I feel that way about Frankenstein, that um, you may have encountered them in various other forms,
Yeah.
but until you read the original, you haven't experienced it
Yeah.
because they're, again, Dracula is um, epistolary, but it's also incredibly experimental.
It is.
And Frankenstein is a fucking it's an acid trip,
It
you
is.
know,
Yeah.
and and it's amazing. But the Three Musketeers, in terms of pure adventure, to me, and the next one would be the first three Mars books by Edgar Rice Burroughs, because
Hmm.
I consider them one book because they're cliffhangers and they connect.
That
Because
yeah,
he created a whole genre, and it ties directly to Three Musketeers. I mean, it's clearly in that. The other would
yeah.
be King Solomon's Mines,
Oh yeah.
the original,
Howard.
and
Yeah.
any
Not not
almost
not
any of the
Howard.
quarterback.
Like
Uh, 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 he's out of my brain too.
yeah.
H. Rider Haggard. H.
H.
Rider
Rider
Haggard.
Haggard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but any of them, but particularly King Solomon's Mines is one of the better structured ones,
Hmm.
because some of the others will kind of meander a little bit. Um, but and she is
Yes.
amazing. Again, things that have sort of like fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
Um, and I was lucky. I read a lot of that stuff when I was really hungry to read in like the
Yeah.
eighth grade, 10th
Right.
grade,
Yeah.
somewhere,
Me too.
early enough
Yeah.
that I mean, I read Lord of the Rings in three successive Friday nights.
Wow.
I got home from school, sat down,
Yeah.
and read the first book all the way through until I passed out.
Wow.
Finished it that weekend. The next weekend, I did the second book,
Yeah.
which is kind of blast through it, kind of totally immersive. But yeah, Three Musketeers. I've got to say it's probably the greatest adventure book because again they're incredibly complex characters because they were based on real people.
Yeah.
They were based on true real people, so they don't always act the way a trope character would act.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in the movie, he always ends up uh, stabbing Richelieu.
Right.
Not Richelieu. The one eye patch, the Christopher Lee character.
Yeah.
Uh, but in um, but in the novel, after they've dueled 3 or 4 times, they finally say "fuck this" and they sit down and drink and they become
Nice.
friends.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
over the course of like a couple of years, that happens.
Yeah.
So there's so much more complex than any of the movies have attempted.
Sure.
I would love to see somebody do like a 10 part, like Game of Thrones, but
Right.
actually adapt the Three Musketeers, the actual book,
Right.
as the many hours and characters and side characters, because they do a streamlined version of it. Even in the Three and Four Musketeers, those
Right.
two movies were streamlined. But if you
Yeah.
do them if you just actually adapt the damn book into a mini series,
Right.
there's so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
But again, like the first Tarzan book, I think is literature.
Hmm.
Not the others; they're kind of potboilers. But the first one was, because
Yeah.
it was going to be a one-off that that was it. He was walked away from it, and then they said it's popular. You got to write a second one. He said, "I got any ideas?" So they
Right.
kept giving him ideas, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but Yeah, I once went for an audition for a Frankenstein, and
Hmm.
I played Frankenstein on stage for a
Yeah,
musical, but this was to play the Doctor in
yeah,
a low budget film that never got made.
right,
But I was the only actor who who auditioned who'd ever read the book. Everybody else was basing everything on the Karloff movie or the
right,
Hammer film,
right.
and I'm
Yeah,
like, how do you not, particularly something that great literature, how do
sure.
you not read the original so you have something to build off of, even if you want
Yeah,
to go somewhere,
right.
So, I mean, the crime now is I don't read enough because I usually have to make the choice, write or read, you know,
Yeah,
um, and you know, as I've gotten older and lazier, I don't read near as enough as I should.
yeah,
Is um, but yeah, I what's nice is that those books are going to be around forever.
yeah.
They will never go out of style.
That's for
They
sure.
will flex. There's some books like that I mean, a lot of people who are the most popular writers of their time are gone.
Hmm.
Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah,
But Doyle, he was
right.
popular and he's still, but at least one of his
Exactly.
characters is. But we
Yeah,
know Dumas. I mean,
exactly.
but we don't know all of the other books that Dumas wrote. He was
Exactly.
mostly popular as a playwright. He really
Yeah,
wasn't that popular as a novelist.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
um,
Yeah.
and that hack fellow Shakespeare. If somebody
Forget
else had
about it.
his
Yeah,
stuff out, you wouldn't know about it.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
how many other great playwrights they didn't have a friend 10 years later to write it down.
Exactly. Yeah,
You know,
right. Exactly. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So like when I was a kid, my parents sent me to this kind of academy. It was like a lot of snotty rich kids, but the main, I guess, the good part, the really, really good part is our teacher, because we only had like 100 kids in the entire school, but we got a lot of personal attention. And so the guy who ran the academy, Thomas Parker, he had us, like reading like Blake. He introduced us to, artists, Marcel Duchamp or, you know, just or Goya and people like that, and music, Stravinsky. But the books we read, and I also like I was just like reading because when I was a kid in our local library here, we had we still had books that were had they're still on the shelves that went back like to the 1940s, so
yeah.
we had like the Alfred Hitchcock. I was actually talking about those with Del Howison, recently on the show, and of the incredible, you know, the books that you read as a kid, really, it doesn't get any better. And my whole
I got a whole shelf of Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators over there.
okay,
But I also
yeah,
have the Alfred Hitchcock paperbacks where he
nice.
curated them.
Yeah,
Or
nice. It's
yeah,
really so one of my goals with Nocturnicorn books is I want to kind of recreate some of that. I want these books to last, and I want people to be able to read them a decade from now or 30 years from now, which is why
yes.
I sort of like I love the idea of, and a lot of our authors are British too, so I love the sort of whole, this is my notion, is like a kind of a cozy, you got your pint or whatever, you're all like, you got
Mhm.
your fireplace, and you get the annual, like like, right, exactly. You It's just like you'd have the annual, right? Of,
Yep,
of
absolutely.
you know what I mean? And it would be a huge thing. Like, so this was very deliberate. Um, this is called the Wicker Yule horror anthology. And my whole idea was like, I want to kind of give you this um cozy feeling. Like I wrote these articles and
Well,
some
the
of them
Christmas tradition used to be ghost stories,
exactly.
you know?
Is right. Do sit down, Sergeant. Shocks are so much better absorbed with the knees bent. Christopher Lee is Lord Summerisle, The Wicker Man, 1973. So that's the opening quote, right? Called The Wicker Yule. And this is some of the people, like, right? This is some
Oh,
of the names,
wow.
right? Right. Well,
Wow.
we didn't have a Clive Barker story, but we do have, David Now Wilson. This was an original, we had Michael Hansen is a frequent contributor. Nicole Six is, my best friend, and we've written stuff together. Lee Bells, Trevor Kennedy, who's an absolute, you know, brilliant man, Jasper Bark, and Dean Drinkle, and Sandy DeLuca, and Rissa Miller wrote the introduction. So, but it also has stuff like, I wrote some articles like Christopher Lee, Dracula Spy and Heavy Metal Legend, and things like that. And so I wanted to recreate this feeling that this is the end of the year, and there's something
Mm,
magical about that season. And, you know, like there's something mythical as well. This is
Yeah.
not just a book. I want to recreate kind of a mood, a fantasy, an aspiration, just the same way that I love music. And when I hear Wagner, when I hear Coltrane or Ornette Coleman or whatever, I it gives me a sort of a mythic sense that, something exists like that. Eliot called it the objective
My
correlative,
cozy
right?
caller waiting to read the Wicker Yule, you
Yes,
know.
exactly. The Wicker Yule. You're my perfect audience. So yeah, so I just love that. And I just remember reading anthologies as a kid where you would read about history. They weren't like divided up into genres. You could read about,
Yes.
so it was magical. And I want
Yeah.
people
I mean,
to feel that
you could
magic.
have a Saki, you could have a Saki story next to a Doyle story next to, a Lovecraft story next to and it was just storytelling. It
Exactly.
was
That's
just story.
I literally have a Saki story in Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, a literary tribute to revenge.
There you go.
You're right. And so yeah, I love to have, Lovecraft and Stoker, and because like you said, you gotta read the originals. In the forthcoming this is a reboot, it's a second edition of uh White and White, a literary tribute to Bauhaus. And we have, are you ready? Jarbo. We've got Carrie Lee Chrome, who was the original songwriter for a little band called the Runaways. You know,
Uh,
Shirley, Kiernan, Palisano, um, and, David J. Haskins. And, that is just like the tip of the
yeah.
iceberg, right? Anna Taborska wrote us an original piece. It's just scrumptious. And we got a Peter Murphy interview. So like people are just gonna lose their minds when they see this. And
Wow.
if you want to write something for it's still, still in production. So if you feel like inspired by, you know, Stigmata Martyr or something, or whatever, the Bauhaus or the Love and Rockets catalog, you know, it's because it is the second edition, and we're losing some of the previous authors for various reasons. So it'd be lovely to have you on
I've
board.
got to finish Johnny. I've got to finish Johnny Druid, but I'll be able to start writing short stories again by the end of June because
Okay,
basically it takes you about 3 months to do a novel,
right.
and so I'm on the way with this. Actually, I have two questions for you, or
Yes,
maybe I should wait till we're not recording. I don't know. One, send me the info for the Barker because I have
yes.
an idea for a story that I
Okay,
have
great.
actually. The other is, um, are you interested in a poetry collection called Blood and Steel?
Um, uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, hell's yeah. I mean,
Because I'll send that to you to take a look at, see what you think. Because it's basically Celtic Viking poetry. Um,
You
And
got my interest. Yeah,
okay,
oh my gosh, yes, we have published solo books. The first one we did is Norbert Gora in Poland, and yeah, he's Polish, and then we put out a book by Sudhakar Gaidani in India, and Yangbo Ma and I collaborated on a book called River of Stars, which is actually I have bigger readership in China now than or as Trump calls it, China, China, in China,
Hina. Yeah.
China. He makes it sound like
You
China.
know what the deaf sign for Trump is?
What?
That's actually the deaf sign for Trump.
That is, what do you mean the deaf sign? The deaf sign, the deaf sign.
For deaf language.
Oh,
You
deaf
know,
language.
like
Oh, that's
this is this is
hilarious.
this is my name. This is TJ, but
Right.
this is Trump in shorthand for Amazon.
Oh, that's
I
rich.
saw that and I almost wet myself.
That's so fucking funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, uh so could you talk a little bit about your novel in progress, and then we're gonna do the thing of
Sure.
like where you talk about your socials and how to contact you and etc.
Okay. Novel. Well, the novel that just came out is The Undiscovered Country, which is
Nice.
the third of the Paradise Investigations. Adam Paradise is a PI in New York in 1939. And in the first book, he goes up against the Nazi Bund right after the big rally and something else. The second one, he gets between a Yakuza gang and Japanese spies and the triad,
Nice.
Tongs. And in the third book, he receives a call from someone to release him from bondage in New Orleans and goes up against the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh wow.
Um, and uh, yeah, and so the book I'm working on now is called Alias Johnny Druid, and
Right.
he's a war vet from Spain, from the Spanish Civil War, who's just got out of the hospital, trying to get his PI business going again. And the new wife of an old friend of his comes to him and says, "Somebody's trying to blackmail me, my ex husband, who, and I haven't told my new husband that this guy exists. So
Yeah.
could you get him off my back?"
Right.
And things develop, and eventually Johnny ends up meeting a fella, which is an Irish werewolf. Because in Ireland, the werewolves are the good guys. And
Yeah.
uh, in this
Oh,
particular case, Maura MacTeer was assigned, her clan is assigned as a guardian for the O'Rourke family. And when O'Rourke is killed, she's summoned because the trunk in his apartment is made from the sacred oak of an old grove. And her family came over with it to
wow.
guardian the O'Rourke family. So now you have a disillusioned vet and a 5 foot um, female Irish Spitfire who can turn into a black dog slash werewolf
Hmm.
whenever she needs to, who are trying to solve the murder. Meanwhile, a series of murders have been happening of the Italian gangs in the city.
Hmm.
And our hero happens to have grown up with the head of the Irish gangs, and they're in contention. So it's very much noir, but again, mixed genres. I got everything but the kitchen sink in there.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah,
I, I,
I would read
his
the
real
shit
name
out
is
of that one.
his real name is Ganny, Gannie.
Yeah.
But in the neighborhood of Brooklyn, they called him Johnny, and that's what he goes by. So he's
Okay.
Johnny Drew, and he actually
Johnny
is.
Druid.
Yeah, his lineage is somewhere way back there. There was a druid in his family because he calls her up. He has the sight, but he doesn't know it, and he didn't get it until he almost died in Spain.
Hmm.
He bled out, and as he was close to death, the veil thinned enough that he was able to gain the sight.
Oh
So, and
wow.
he doesn't believe it himself. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of Irish mythology running around in the background of the story.
Nice.
Um, but you know, it's I like to take the tropes and smack them around and put them on their head. You know,
Yeah.
like Frankenstein quotes Teilhard Chardin, I mean, a monster quotes
Yeah.
Teilhard Chardin and Thomas Aquinas
Nice.
and Kant
Yeah.
and Schopenhauer
Right.
while he's beating the crap out of Nazis because he's
Nice.
very introspective.
Yeah.
So
So
that,
like I mean, I could talk about Schopenhauer a lot, but he named his dog Atman because he wanted to be reminded of like this Hindu like essential like
so,
unity of everything, right? And it's like, yeah,
wow.
here Atman, yeah. So yeah,
Well, yes, but can you sing the philosopher's song?
well, no,
Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. I dig her was a Tuesday beggar, could drink you under the table. Alpenhauer and Schau, what's it? Lichtenstein was a beerly. Oh God, I lost it. That's it. Yeah, my brain must have fallen out. But anyway,
this
I used to carry the lyrics around in my pocket. But anyway, so yeah, I haven't found a home yet for Johnny Druid. That's the one I'm working on now, and
okay,
then I got to get back to the next Paradise one.
yeah,
And then I just had Tomahawks and Sorcery just came out from uh, Airship 27. It's 1760s in the New World,
hmm
and the main character is a sculptor who's also a frontiersman, and each of the three novellas in it deals with Native American sorcery.
hmm
So it's basically, if you've ever read Beyond the Black River, the Conan story by Howard, where it's a frontier story where um, him and a frontiersman are fighting off the Picts.
hmm
That was sort of my inspiration. So it's basically literally tomahawks and sorcery.
nice,
It's if Conan was in Rogers Rangers in the
okay,
New World, that's what
yeah,
these stories are.
I love it, I
So
love it.
tomahawks and sorcery is the title of it.
Okay,
So for all of
that's
you,
so cool. Yeah, wow, I love it. This is great. So yeah, so we got about five or six books, ahead of this, but if you send me your poetry collection, so um I don't know if we should talk about this off the air, but anyway, yeah, why don't we take it, a little bit off the air? So this has been the Kandy Fontaine Show, and with my special guest, Teel James Glenn, and you're a rock star. So how can people get in touch with you?
well, my website's being rebuilt currently, but you'll soon be able to get me on theurbanswashbuckler.com,
Okay.
or I'm on Facebook. There is no other Teel James Glenn,
Yes.
Teel, and
Right.
I'm on Amazon. And if you want to email me, it's tjglenn at AOL. Yes, I am a dinosaur.
Yeah. Wow. Kate Kiernan still has like a live journal account. So that's, like, and she literally is a paleontologist, which is hilarious,
There you go. You
right?
know, well, you know what? It hasn't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It hasn't given me problems yet. Other people
Yeah.
have had problems, but I've been okay with it. So I just kind of roll along until something makes me trip. You know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, which reminds me, so my novel, Doctor Flesh, I haven't written like half of like even a fraction of the number of books you've written, but my favorite blurb of all time, the late Necro Stein, Terry something or other from Texas Terror Entertainment, who's also a filmmaker, right? He said makes you. I'm actually gonna because I got it right here. This is the cover, the photo shoot
Oh,
that
that's a
I
great cover.
thank you. This is my, sort of homage to, Grindhouse and so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very
this is
much.
this is the late great Nick Rostein. He said, after reading Dr. Flesh, I felt I needed to check myself into a rehab clinic. The extreme sexuality and completely abhorrent vision slammed down your pie hole will make you feel like you've just eaten 8 Percocets and washed it down with a bottle of moonshine. His Kafkaesque real his his Kafka-esque musings are very reminiscent of Kafka raping Pyramid Head and slamming its face into the ground while doing so. A must read if you want to feel like you're tripping balls.
So it's a children's book. I see.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, but only the
14 and
children of the
under,
corn.
Children of the Corn, yeah. Or it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, so uh yeah, that reminds me of a David Hess anecdote, but something about like, his yeah, anyway. Um so Clive Barker, note to self, and AI has this thing where it will summarize everything and has action points, which I'm not a workflows kind of dude, but it is very helpful. So this has been the Kandy Fontaine Show, special guest um, Teel James Glenn, and he is a contributor to the forthcoming, very, very soon Nocturnicorn Books release of Dreams of Fire and Steel 2, a sword and sorcery anthology featuring Nicole H. Matthew Knight, Ronnie James Dio, um, Caitlin R. Kiernan, J.G. Faherty, um, I don't think Anna Taborska contributed. Usually does Cassandra Alagos Scofi in Greece. Shout out to her and the usual gang of, you know, idiots. So, okay.
Dad would say, yeah.
Yes. Metal in your face. Okay.
Uh,
Um, and now we're going to talk, um, if I can just figure this out. Um, Record breakout rooms. What am I missing here? Does it um
usually it's save or end recording.
end
Might be up in the corner.
end meeting for all?